This guy was struck by an arrow. He staggered until he fell to the ground, wondering what it meant. A man appeared, pointing his sword at him. He simply said, "Check it." A group of hooded figures shouted that they had found a relic. And just like that, the protagonist had all his items stolen. Now the time has come for his journey to end. He met his end the same way it happened in the game. After being defeated, he asked the Mother of Corruption not to be upset. One of those artifacts is a mystical hand, which moves toward its servant's body while emitting a warning sound, even without a mouth. The boy said that it was necessary. Finally, the hand managed to touch him, and the body stood up once more. Our boy thinks the hand is worried about the divinity of the stolen relic. His body lifts him up as he states that he has already collected it, so it makes no sense to be chased for all this time. The damage our protagonist suffered is being completely restored. Despite everything that happened, he ended up losing some of the money he was carrying, and the mystical hand won't stop repeating the same word. In the past, our boy was just an ordinary young man who lived a busy life and played games. And he liked to use an editing program. Based on a game whose name he doesn't even remember anymore, he still kept having fun. He loved to play as the Priest of Corruption. This is a rather curious description, as it's hard to imagine what the Priest of Corruption does. It's difficult to progress and even to play, one of the most challenging classes in the game, but our protagonist felt very enthusiastic every time he played this way. One time, he managed to complete all the tasks, and that seems to have caused a bizarre reaction in front of his computer. After being pulled through a portal, he ended up becoming the Priest of Corruption himself. Now he carries with him that mystical hand that repeats only the same word. It seems that only our boy hears this voice, as if it were the lead singer of a heavy metal band, a Mother of Corruption. His journey with her began 5 years ago when he first served her. Upon waking up in the game, our protagonist had only two things: a robe from the Order of Corruption and the hand of the Mother of Corruption herself, resting on his chest. He also felt an intense presence, as if he were connected to that hand, which eased his acceptance process since he was now inside the game's world. According to the description of this universe, the Priest of Corruption is being modified by mystical means and ancient rituals. As a result, our boy has an enhanced physique, as well as heightened senses. That's why his body can only be defeated by deities. That sword didn't even leave a scratch. Our boy also suspects there might be something different about his brain. He was never able to withstand conflict scenes so well, but after becoming a Priest of Corruption, intense situations became commonplace, and he's not even affected by them. A terrible side effect he feels now is that his body is unable to feel absolutely anything, not even the taste of things. Back in the city, our protagonist is receiving his identification. He would also like to receive another job, as it's good to keep busy. The secretary said she would look through her papers. There might be something suitable for him. Meanwhile, our boy waits patiently. Since arriving in that city, our protagonist has been striving to become a member of the Order of Preservation. If he were in another order, he could provoke the wrath of the goddess he now serves, and he would be marked in a way that only other members could see. A seal of punishment. But it seems the Mother of Corruption is being benevolent with him. Since the Order of Corruption is an enemy to all, and our boy, who wasn't accepted by everyone either, ended up becoming the sole follower of the Mother of all corruption in the world. After this brief explanation, the secretary finally managed to find something suitable. As soon as he received his task, our protagonist thanked the girl for her work. Generally, mercenaries ask the secretary to read what is written on this paper, but our boy was given the ability to understand the language of this world. And before carrying out his mission, he has a question for the girl. He would like to receive a portion of the reward up front, which surprised the girl, as there's no way that's happening. Now that he has his task, he has departed with the caravan. It seems that after insisting a bit, he managed to get the money, but the secretary made it very clear that this was an exception. This ended up making the goddess jealous, and our protagonist made a point of saying that he isn't interested in anyone. While talking with the deity, the young man was interrupted by someone. A baby-faced young man is trying to be friendly and would like to know our protagonist's hometown. This guy's name is Pierre. If they continue on this route, they will pass through the town where he was born, and he hopes his parents are doing well. He also shared that creatures often appear to people on this road, but all our protagonist wanted was to travel in silence. Fortunately, someone ended up calling for the young man, and now he's going to the front of the caravan, promising he'll be back soon. The goddess told our protagonist to confront everyone, but he doesn't want to do that, as it would make his trip much more troublesome. Dialoguing with the Mother of Corruption, our protagonist made it clear that he needs money and would like to be able to keep warm this winter. This justification seems to have been reasonable for her. Now our boy can walk in peace. However, he realized he was too sharp in his argument, stating that he wouldn't do it again. The goddess's hand opened inside his coat, and our boy wants to know with how many fingers she rates these people. A mark began to appear on the other travelers. For our protagonist, this is a sign that there's no one special among them. When he defeats an opponent, he receives a blessing from his deity proportional to the number of fingers. When he gets 10,000 points, he can gain an authority, and thanks to the system, he managed to absorb the divinity of a sacred relic. That chalice from the beginning of the story, and through it, our boy gained his first authority. In total, there are 12 relics. The Mother of Corruption informed him that if he manages to get them all of our boy's wishes will be granted. and the first thing he wants to obtain is the ability to taste things again. That's when he heard someone say that the captain had asked not to be disturbed. It's the young man who appeared to say this, as he recognized he was bothering our introverted boy. Although that was a great relief for our boy, he was polite, saying that it was alright, recommending that he not worry about him. But in the next second, several arrows were fired, hitting some of the travelers. Our protagonist acted quickly to protect Pierre, pushing him to the ground so he wouldn't be hit by the arrows. Some of them were traveling in our boy's direction. He ended up being hit squarely. After witnessing this scene, Pierre became very worried. A short distance from the caravan, the archers revealed their presence, and our boy is on the ground looking exhausted. He is sure this attack must have been carried out by bandits. The mother of corruption suggested that he pretend to be defeated to surprise the unsuspecting attackers when he gets a chance. That would definitely be the easiest thing to do right now. But our protagonist doesn't agree with that. After getting up, he looked at the sword closest to his hands, showing that he has his own priorities too. Ready to start the fight, our boy is prepared to use his resilience to be immune to the strength of others. The archer responsible for hitting him was very confused. This boy wasn't supposed to be able to walk, and now he'll never find out the truth because, unlike our protagonist, that opponent was permanently defeated. Others who were hiding in the forest watched this, and the adversary's leader is now very angry. He told his lackeys that he will fight the priest, while the others take care of the caravan. Our protagonist's eyes are already focused on the next victim. The battle between him and the adversary's leader has begun. The blows they exchange are very powerful. Now both have been pushed back by the impact of their swords. Curious about this strength, our protagonist asked the mother of corruption to evaluate his opponent. This made the opponent realize he's talking to himself, taking the opportunity to attack. But his attempt to end the fight was thwarted. For someone with a fragile appearance, our boy knows how to use a sword quite well. He also discovers that this man was evaluated with 2.5 fingers. It's truly impressive that some random bandit is rated at the same level as the ranger who defeated our boy. With a smile on his face, he realized that this game is completely unbalanced. Now he needs to focus all his attention on this fight. After a powerful blow, our boy's sword was shattered. The bandit fighting him was pleased to see it. That's why he uses frost steel to fight, which is much tougher than ordinary steel. Seeing that he couldn't defend himself, the bandit dismissed our protagonist as nothing special, promising to leave him alone. He revealed this was their last job in the area. They were leaving anyway. He suggested they stop fighting and forget everything that happened. But our protagonist had other plans. He suggested the bandit change his ways and leave this place immediately. If he promised to do so, our protagonist assured him he'd go easy on him. But those words only offended his opponent. He wouldn't agree to something like that. Before he had a chance to respond, our boy was hit by an arrow. It was all part of the bandit's strategy, trying to distract our boy. His allies barely helped, having seen him destroy the priest's sword. During the bandits' conversation, it was revealed that no one from the caravan survived. Our protagonist asked if that was what they had really done, and the sound of his voice struck fear into everyone. Now our boy rose from the snow. He asked what made them so surprised. Indeed, someone had survived being shot in the head with an arrow, but our boy is so used to it that he realized this was a first for the bandits. Now, those who once seemed intimidating were completely terrified. Clasping his hands together, our protagonist said he had already given them all a chance. The response came as an arrow, and a great energy began to envelop the boy's body. Watching this up close, the bandit was completely shocked. He then ordered his allies to fire at the target. Several arrows began to strike our boy's body. He was praying to the mother of corruption, saying he was in danger and asking what to do. After all those shots, the bandits grew even more terrified, certain they were facing a monster. While our protagonist asked the mother of corruption for help, the bandits came to the obvious conclusion that it would be much better to flee now, only to find they were surrounded by a magical barrier, unable to escape. Our protagonist knows this is the line that the living cannot cross. An authority the priest of corruption must activate before unleashing his full power, preventing his enemies from escaping. In fact, our protagonist quite likes this kind of authority. Faced with danger, the bandits had no choice but to use their swords again. Before the first of them could even attack the barrier, one was overwhelmingly defeated. The scene was so alarming it deeply shook the survivors. An imposing four-armed creature was walking in the snow, and it was this creature that defeated the bandit with its bare hands. The faceless creature was now ready to continue its duties, causing the surviving bandits to become instantly terrified. The monster roared furiously inside that dome of perdition. It walked slowly towards its next victims, who, by this point, were too disturbed to react. They were all begging the priest to have mercy on their lives, but their screams weren't enough to change his mind. After that whole confrontation, life returned to normal. Our protagonist returned to the caravan's location. He asked if the mother of corruption wanted him to collect those divinities. When he does this, the traces disappear, which could lead to an investigation, so he'll need to think of an excuse. That's when our boy noticed something. The opponent, who wouldn't stop talking, seemed to be injured, but it didn't look fatal. Our protagonist will do whatever it takes to save this person's life, as it will be very useful for building his reputation. And now he needs the mother of corruption's help once again. asking her to stop the progression of the man's wounds. Elsewhere, far away, someone was using the chalice our protagonist had recovered. The woman holding it wanted to know what happened to the person responsible for the theft. She was informed that the culprit had been neutralized. Since the place was abandoned and in the middle of nowhere, they had to leave the adversary behind. By all indications, this woman is also a priestess. Observing the chalice closely, she said the young man could return now because she was thinking of starting her journey to pilgrimage. Her assistant, hearing these words, was surprised as it was too sudden. This led him to ask if she was doing it because of the prophecy. And indeed, that is exactly what motivates this woman now. Besides, there is someone she needs to find. Back in the snow, our boy is carrying the talkative survivor. 10 years ago, all religious orders received the same prophecy. Our boy is now arriving at a fortress, and the end will consume the husk of life, bringing perdition to the entire world. Our boy left the man in the care of the guards. They didn't know how our boy managed to carry someone so heavy alone. A girl appeared, saying she already had permission from the guards. She revealed she never would have guessed it from his appearance, but it seems he's really stronger than he looks, and he's holding something too. Our boy is carrying a bag with proof that he completed his task. It would be much better to hand this over to the guild, so our protagonist gives the package to her. As he walks through the city, our boy mentions he needs a place to sleep. If it's okay with him, the girl has a suggestion, and before she could reveal it, the mother of corruption got upset, because the girl suggested he sleep at her house, making the mother of corruption jealous. After that invitation, our boy slept soundly in a warm bed. Since he was looking for comfort, he accepted the invitation, explaining to the mother of corruption that he had no bad intentions towards the girl. The truth is, he slept in the guest room at the mercenary hall. After waking up that morning, our boy heard the door open slowly. It was the same girl who appeared to wish him a good morning. She said she'd like him to rest as much as possible, but there's something he must do urgently. Immediately, our boy started to get up, saying there was no problem. He wanted to know what was so urgent, and the girl informed him that the Lord wished to see him, all while the mother of corruption's presence showed her disapproval. Our boy found the invitation strange. He wanted to know the reason for such a meeting. He was informed that the caravan's captain was Captain Galad, who was the half-brother of the city's lord. Finally, our protagonist was brought before this man. The butler who led him there was told to leave the hall. Lord Tredden observed our protagonist closely. He asked if the boy had witnessed his brother's final moments. As soon as he offered him some tea, our boy began to smile mysteriously. The moment the mother of corruption saw the man, she drew a large X on his body. And our boy, instead of accepting the tea, asked how such a creature could live hidden among humans, because he is, in fact, a demon. There's only one reason the mother of corruption marks people like that. It's when they encounter a being that isn't alive. And that kind of creature, only one can maintain a human form. Demons. And there's one in this room right now. Even though they are stronger than most other creatures, demons can't do things on their own. Other creatures have the same limitation, which is why they need to make pacts with the creatures of this world. That's why demons love all living creatures, but the gods hate demons because they give as much as they take. The followers of the gods were instructed to call these creatures demons, attributing evil behavior to them. That's when the Great Hunt began. Thinking about it, the demon contractor class was very difficult, and most players avoided it at all costs. Our protagonist had played it before. It was the second class he decided to try. After that sentence, the city's lord fell silent. He was surprised by this priest. Thanks to the events with Galad, he was able to meet with this very important guest. Because he was able to see through his human disguise, he believes our protagonist does not serve the goddess of preservation. And he said he could be called Creeping Weight. Our boy said he is a priest who serves the Lady of Corruption, and he can be called Marnak. For simplicity, we'll refer to him as Marcos. The Lord thought people like him were extinct and found it interesting to meet a servant of corruption. He also asked our boy to sit, as they were the only ones in the room. Now, the Lord was going to be extremely honest with him. There was no particular reason he wanted to meet the boy. In truth, he wants to know about the final moments of the captain from the caravan, ensuring he would pay for all the effort our protagonist had put in. As soon as he heard about money, our boy smiled, telling the man everything he wanted to hear. Once outside the mansion, our boy acknowledged that the meeting had been interesting. He found out that the captain had received a job from the Lord, but ended up dying in the process. Looking out the window, the Lord said that life has its complications, because it's truly very difficult. Despite the outburst, our boy got his long-awaited gold coins. He understood it wasn't a bribe. The man genuinely wanted to know the truth. After being scolded by the Lady of Corruption, our boy said he wasn't greedy, but that money is a necessity. He hoped the goddess would hear him out before she got any angrier. He cleared his throat to begin his speech. "Is there anything that doesn't tarnish and lasts as long as gold?" he asked, wondering if she knew what it was. Since she didn't know, he would give her the answer now. It was the affection he felt for her, which left the goddess quite flustered. Apparently, our protagonist's tactic was super effective, and that was enough for the goddess to be at peace again. To our young man, she would always be the most important thing in his life. He revealed that she no longer needed to worry about anything, especially not about things that might make her jealous. But the moment she saw that girl again, the goddess became irritated. The secretary suggested our young man should meet the priests from other sects. Those over there were from the sect of teaching, but our boy wanted to avoid that group for now. However, he might not be able to do that, because as he looked at these men, he felt something strange. He was immediately informed by the Lady of Corruption. A man within that group was in possession of a sacred relic. One of the men decided to approach our boy. He hadn't expected to find a priest of preservation in that place, one who dedicates his life to doing what is right. Introducing himself as Orvis, the scale of retribution. This man's face was marked by scars. The bovine-like being behind him was named Toran, while the girl accompanying them was named Patina. After this introduction, our boy was friendly as well. He said it was very nice to meet them all and revealed that he served the goddess of preservation. The secretary found it very curious that there were so many other priests there too. For our protagonist, this was a great relief, as it might not happen right now, but he would have plenty of opportunities to obtain that relic. The only problem was that when he absorbed their divinity, a bit of corruption energy tended to escape. Now, perhaps he would have to obtain it again. Those men said they needed to meet with the Lord now. They promised they could have a good talk with our protagonist soon. As they walked away, our protagonist wondered why they were going to speak with that man. The secretary said that the guild usually hosts priests for a very small fee. Visibly annoyed, our boy wanted to know if he'd have to pay for the previous day, but the girl said no. She asked if he thought she had some kind of personal interest in him, revealing she only helped because he was a priest. That ended up disappointing our boy. However, the secretary said she did have some personal intentions in helping him. If possible, to prevent the food there from spoiling, she asked our boy to use a blessing to preserve it. Since she got too close to our protagonist, he became uncomfortable with her proximity, and the receptionist seemed to have noticed his reaction. As she admired our boy, the Lady of Corruption became extremely enraged. That's when someone else appeared, saying the two of them seemed to get along very well. Our protagonist wanted to know why that man hadn't followed his companions. It was the bovine-like companion who had stayed behind at the tavern. The man said he had no other choice. Due to his ethnicity, he tended to make a bad impression and preferred to be more discreet. But the girl there said the Lord probably wouldn't have a negative impression of him. He might be very distant when dealing with people, but he behaves in an extremely professional manner, completely separating his personal life matters, which is why he has many supporters, suggesting the man shouldn't speak ill of him. After being warned, he promised he would keep that in mind. Now, if he wanted to learn more about the history of this city, he was extremely impressed by the words the girl spoke, which were definitely not few. The minutes passed, and the three of them were now chatting quite naturally, which prompted our protagonist to ask a question. He wanted to know why those men decided to visit the Lord. Faced with this, their companion was about to give the real answer. They were just following a prophecy they received 10 years ago. They believe that the end of all life will be caused by an evil entity. Very frightened, our protagonist asked if they thought the Lord was this entity, but the man said no. In fact, Orvis had just gone to check in person, as he has an ability that allows him to assess if someone has a malignant nature. Apparently, what allows this to happen is a relic, and in the Lord's presence, it began to glow uncontrollably, revealing the true appearance of the man who was in that room. While they were talking, a huge explosion occurred in the city. A creature resembling a large crocodile was furious. Our protagonist looked fearfully in the direction of the sound, wondering what could have happened. The priest immediately grabbed his hammer as he was ready for battle. He managed to land a powerful blow on the creature that appeared in the middle of the city. The impact was strong, aimed at neutralizing the threat. That was the hammer of punishment that Orvis carried. Far away, the bovine-featured priest knew his companions were fighting and needed help immediately. Our protagonist asked him to go on ahead, saying he would follow shortly. His priority was to speak with the secretary. Revealing she was quite frightened, she asked our protagonist what was happening in the city, but without answering her, he asked about Pierre. He needed to know which medical center Pierre was being treated at, as he had to meet him immediately. Having no other choice, he picked the girl up in his arms. Now both of them were heading towards the other man. Our protagonist did this using his impressive physical abilities. As they ran through the city, they heard several cries for help, because a giant and very dangerous crocodile had appeared. The secretary had something to say to our protagonist, seeing with her own eyes that the creature was in the middle of the city causing great destruction, but he ignored it completely, as he needed to find the injured man as soon as possible, which made the girl point in the right direction. Very worried, our protagonist entered the house. He found the man still unconscious from his injuries, but given the destruction in the city, they were relieved he was still alive. Our protagonist wouldn't let him lose his life in this situation, not after all the work he put into saving him. Now our boy picked the man up in his arms. He also asked the secretary to hold on to him tightly, as he wouldn't be able to use his hands to carry her this time. Surprising everyone, the secretary held on tightly to our boy. He stomped on the ground hard once more, using his strength to flee from there immediately. Now the secretary seemed to be on alert. She told our protagonist that she knew of a secret passage in this place. As soon as he heard this information, our protagonist asked her to share it, and the secretary pointed the way he should go. She informed him that the house ahead had a passage leading out of the city, but the door was locked. Faced with this, our boy had to use force to get through, leaving the secretary completely impressed with that display of strength and power. Our boy was now inside this mysterious house, and looking back, the secretary couldn't even believe what had happened. Truly, this priest was stronger than he looked. Putting the girl down, our young man said she should escape through the secret passage if things got much worse. Very worried, she decided to ask what our boy was going to do now. He said he needed to return to the center of the battle. Even though the secretary was worried, he completely ignored her, leaving the two of them behind to return to the fight. Upon arriving at the city center, our boy came across something unusual. It was his bovine-like companion. He'd already been defeated and was lying on the ground, visibly exhausted. With barely enough strength to open his eyes, he managed to recognize our protagonist. Analyzing the horn being up close, he realized his injuries were too severe. There was nothing he could do to help the individual. He would have to leave him there, but the protagonist wanted to know where the others who accompanied him were. The news to share was not good. The woman, who had no lines in the story, was no longer among them. The protagonist asked if there was a way to defeat the dangerous demon. The horn being replied that they had another relic, the white sword. His companion had managed to plunge it into the demon. If the protagonist could use the sword on the creature's weak spot, the demon would surely be defeated. After saying this, the horn being met his end. There was no more life in his body. The protagonist seized the opportunity to collect the divinity from the being before him, earning points in the process. Meanwhile, where the demon was, the remaining priest did his best to defeat it, using his hammer to press the sword deeper into the demon. The blows were intense, and the creature was clearly bothered by the situation. This was the chance the protagonist needed. He managed to strike the creature with one of his swords, giving him the perfect opportunity to act, since all he had to do was reach the white sword. But he soon realized his task wouldn't be easy. The creature was very agitated. The protagonist couldn't believe what was about to happen. The enormous crocodile began to spin its entire body in a rapid motion. Because of this, he was thrown far away, leaving the Mother of Corruption very apprehensive. The boy now needed some time to recover, but he told the Mother of Corruption that everything was fine. After all, his goddess had told him that some blessings come with great challenges. And this made the protagonist very excited because next to him was the relic he longed to possess. Finally getting his hands on the sacred artifact, he immediately offered its power to his goddess to receive a new authority. The power of corruption began to manifest, flowing directly into the artifact. The protagonist realized that each relic held the power for a new authority. After absorbing them, his points increased significantly. He had just lifted another seal. Faced with this, he asked the Mother of Corruption what made this one different from the others. The hand near him moved immediately to show him something. He thanked it for the support, but considered breaking the seal of a sacred relic a small feat. Although this agitated the Mother of Corruption, he liked that it could move that way. Since the situation was a bit urgent, he decided to stop joking around and immediately began his prayer, offering all the points he had received to her, so he could receive a new authority. The boy eagerly awaited the power, receiving the text of corruption as his reward. The effects of this authority were simple, yet extremely powerful. From the moment the authority was activated, words appeared on his body like tattoos, amplifying all his physical abilities. To the protagonist, this wasn't about authority at all and would be very useful in the situation they needed to overcome. Getting to his feet, he noticed his legs had recovered from the damage of the crocodile's attack, which made him look around. There was a sword nearby. On the ground lay the priest with marks on his face, who was likely no longer alive. Now the boy understood what had happened. They both fell from the creature at the same time. Looking at the body, the protagonist wished for his soul to rest in peace. Soon after, he performed another prayer as he was going to collect the essence of that body to gain more points. During this process, the demon continued its furious rampage, now focused on completely destroying the city. For the protagonist, this situation was advantageous. The ones who angered the creature were priests from another sect. Even though they had already been defeated, the demon was still out of control, and there had to be a reason for it. The protagonist hadn't imagined that demons were creatures driven by pure instinct. Only then did he notice something in that place and now needed to ask the Mother of Corruption directly. He decided he would use his new power now, so the hand that accompanied him had to be put away. Filled with motivation, the boy headed straight into the center of the fight. With his tribal tattoos, he was greatly strengthened. The demon didn't expect to find another enemy like him, and when it tried to attack, it missed its target. But the creature had a powerful and flexible tail, and with a single movement, it caused even greater destruction. This gave the protagonist the chance to find the white sword still embedded in the creature's body. He knew exactly what needed to be done, but the closer he got to the sword, the more the creature's body coiled. The demon was certainly planning to perform another one of its dangerous spins, but the protagonist was already prepared for this and waited patiently for the move to be executed. So he backed away from the creature's body, which in the next second unleashed its devastating spin. The protagonist had to move back to avoid being caught in the destruction. The demon's power was so immense, it was causing explosions in the city. The shockwaves were so brutal that windows shattered on their own. Even the protagonist felt the strong impact, which would be good for the fight, and now the demonic crocodile was ready to continue its rampage. It's explained that when the boy uses this new authority, his body begins a process of internal weakening. If the battle takes too long, he will end up completely incapacitated. There was no time to lose. The boy went straight for the sword, managing to get his hands on its hilt. Then he remembered the Horn Being's advice. If the sword hit the monster's weak spot, it would surely be defeated. Our hero was very excited about this, but he ended up doing the exact opposite, removing the artifact from the creature's body and ordering the Lord to wake up. Finally, the monster that seemed out of control regained its rationality. Its demonic body began to dissolve, engulfing the entire city in a bright flash of light. The people still there watched in complete surprise, even the secretary who had helped the protagonist, as there was no reason to explain such a luminous energy. In the midst of the destruction, the Lord's body appeared badly injured. With a smile on his face, the protagonist asked if he had woken up. The Lord said that finding the protagonist was the greatest blessing that could have happened. Pointing to the sword, the protagonist said it was what had been suppressing his mind. After extending a hand to the Lord, he asked if he still needed help. The man finally managed to stand up, saying the coins he had given the boy were truly worth it. That mysterious blue-haired priestess who appeared several chapters ago was concentrating power in one of her hands. She threw a small sphere of energy on the ground, and after that, fire began to spread everywhere. And the same character who had defeated the protagonist before was very surprised. Every time he saw that authority, he was always impressed. In the place where they were, there was no body, and he was sure he had left the protagonist there. It seemed like a long time had passed since that day. The body could have been taken by monsters. The blue-haired woman acknowledged this as a possibility and thanked the old man for taking her to that place, but she still had one last request regarding the nearby towns. She wanted to know the name of each one. Back in the destruction caused by the demon, our protagonist walks through the city, observing everything that happened. He is being led somewhere by the city lord's butler. The boy enters the room with a big smile and is immediately greeted by the lord, who is eagerly awaiting his arrival. He even mentioned that the boy seems to get more presentable as time goes by. Our boy thanked him for the compliments, but the city lord needed to express his gratitude to the demon slayer. However, the protagonist knows the demon is alive, and the lord said that even creatures like it deserve to live. In fact, the protagonist doesn't disagree with this statement. After the whole cataclysm, the lord told everyone that the boy was responsible for saving the city, and that his actions had directly saved his life. The protagonist isn't very fond of the fame he received, as it came with the moniker Demon Slayer. The guild secretary, however, loved it and made sure to spread the news to everyone, helping the protagonist become increasingly well known. Everyone was amazed by his deeds, since for all intents and purposes, he defeated that demon without a single scratch. While people speculate about what he can do, the boy just wants to run away. Meeting with the Lord, he mentioned being impressed with the quality of the prosthetics the Lord was using. The Lord revealed he only does this in front of our protagonist. In front of normal people, he pretends to have limited movement, not moving naturally. Because to have this mobility, he has to pay a very high price. Our protagonist was immediately curious to know what it was, and the Lord said he would find out soon enough. Because the hair on his head is starting to fall out like leaves in autumn, the Lord is sure that in a matter of months he will be completely bald. This situation made our protagonist very emotional, as hair loss is a sensitive subject for any man. In any case, the Lord wants to know if our protagonist has a free week, and the boy said yes. This answer is perfect, as he has an ideal task for our protagonist. The rumors that he defeated a dark creature are spreading, and this is related to the existence of the Empire's sacred relics. Our protagonist's reward would be many gold coins. They would be paid in advance if he proves his worth in exploring the ruins. They would even be willing to give our boy one of these relics. That's when our protagonist realized things were happening just as the mysterious figure had said, so he needed to check it out for himself. He immediately accepted the job offer. Long ago, there was an ancient empire that marked the Age of Mages, bringing unity to the entire continent. Now that technology has advanced, its sacred relics have become precious treasures, and most of the valuable items in the world today are relics from that ancient empire. After receiving the mission, our protagonist went to meet his collaborators. The person who requested the task is named Valtus. That's a well-known surname, as his father is the leader of the Black Wolves. However, the young man made it clear that he is not the man's official heir. Our protagonist started thinking about it. He never imagined the leader of the Black Wolves would have a son under these circumstances, since he had been alone after losing his wife. Filled with curiosity, our protagonist decided not to ask any more personal questions, so he asked to be introduced to the other people on the task. The one in charge of magic is named Tunisa, and she will guide this expedition to the relics. Meanwhile, the Horned Warrior is named Sukas, responsible for the heavy lifting. Finally, they were formally introduced to our boy, who also told them his name, Marcos. Now that everyone knows each other, the expedition leader wants to start their journey. It will take 2 days to reach their destination. There will be plenty of time to talk as they walk. After 2 long days, they are resting in a clearing. The fire is the only thing illuminating the inhospitable place. Looking at our protagonist, the expedition leader asks if he isn't going to sleep as it's necessary to recover. Our boy said he had slept enough, and even though there's still a long time until sunrise, he doesn't want to sleep. The expedition leader asked if he had any interesting stories to share, guessing our boy had many suitors. Embarrassed by this assumption, our protagonist said he had no experience in such matters. When Valtus asked if he had a particular type of woman, Our boy remembered the hand that travels with him, saying he likes women who stay by his side, and the goddess paid close attention to this. Valtis agreed, saying it's great to wake up next to someone special. He believes the most interesting part of a partner is her personality. The mysterious figure ended up liking this opinion, completely approving of the comment. But Valtis said a good heart is the most inviting quality, like the gates to happiness. He told our protagonist that he admires people with great qualities and strong personalities. Our protagonist said it's very important for a person to know their own goals, as this guides each person's personal journey. He suggested the young man not talk about it in front of women, but Valtis said he only mentioned it because they were alone. He feels comfortable when talking to our boy, as if they were good friends. Excited by this, our protagonist ended up agreeing. That night, the two of them ended up laughing a lot and sharing stories. During this time, the mysterious figure recommended that our boy be more selective about making friends, but he really enjoyed talking with Valtis. After that long journey, the girl with them said they had arrived. She began to remove the hood from her face, stating that she was going to open the ruins. Entering the ancient ruins was easy. The first thing they needed to find was the key. Then, they moved to the coordinates written on the key, using the ancient language engraved on it. They finally managed to insert the key into the portal. That shouldn't be enough to grant access to the ruins, but only mages can read the ancient language. That's why they are indispensable for tasks like this one. The only exception is our protagonist, who is a player in this universe. That's why he can read the ancient language. But he decided to keep this fact to himself. With the portal open before them, it was time to enter. Once inside the ruins, our boy was amazed, as it's very difficult to get a key like that. It was as if they were in a completely different world. Compared to the ruins Valtis had explored before, these seemed very well preserved. Our boy is confident they will find many artifacts in this place. He never imagined he would get a chance like this. Since ruins like these were only seen in book illustrations, his heart felt like it would race with excitement. His entire team was focused on exploration. After a short walk, they found a huge gate. In the ancient language, it was written that they must prove they possessed the imperial bloodline. The mage among them said the bloodline was necessary, and it had to be from the empire. Immediately, the doors opened, and now everyone had to prepare for battle. Several creatures were running toward them. Our protagonist's team was practically surrounded. But the warrior with horns on his head was ready for a fight. He possessed a completely disproportionate strength. The group's mage wasn't going to stand by and do nothing either. Her spell caused the entire floor to start cracking. A huge explosion erupted from her efforts. The resulting wave of power was truly overwhelming. Valtis watched everything that was happening intently. Even our boy already had his sword ready. Moving his sword with agility, he took down a few opponents in the process. The monsters that appeared there seemed to be no match for this team. After fighting for a bit, the goddess said something to our boy, which made him react immediately. One of the monsters tried to attack him from behind. Our protagonist had let it slip by, being a little careless. Before he could finish the creature, someone else did it for him. An arrow was shot by one of his allies. Valtis did it with confidence. Our boy greatly appreciated his companion's kindness. At the end of the battle, an argument started. Someone didn't like what the mage had done, as she had pushed enemies in his direction. But the girl said it was the most efficient way to stop them all. Now that they had neutralized all the monsters, she asked the horned warrior to be quiet, but he remained irritated. After Valtis intervened, the warrior had to shut up. But the team leader was impressed with our protagonist, who really seemed to be a monster hunter. Our protagonist said he didn't want to show that side of his priesthood, but the truth is Valtis really liked it. Our boy also praised his boss's skill with the bow. Valtis said he has been practicing since he was a child, which is why he's so skilled. In the middle of this conversation, the woman asked when they were going to head out. She was already prepared to march again. Since she still had a lot of mana, she asked everyone to hurry up. The horned warrior didn't appreciate all this motivation, as they had just fought hard and hadn't even rested yet. He made it clear that those who fight physically need to rest. The mage ignored his speech, believing her other companions would agree with her. The faster they finished these ruins, the better. She also said the horned warrior was just being dramatic, which made the young man very angry. Valtis had the final say, stating they would rest before moving forward. This left the woman quite displeased. Visibly nervous about the argument, our boy started to smile apprehensively. There's something particular about mages in this world. They are almost always very arrogant and extremely difficult. It's very easy to become a mage in this place. You just have to be born as one, although there are some differences from person to person. Those who possess mana have these powers blossom at a certain age. When this happens, knowledge of the ancient language appears in their minds, and without any kind of teaching, they also learn to use spells, using mana to break the rules of this world, being definitively reborn as true mages. But because of the great knowledge that fills their heads, they hate learning new things. That's why most of them become difficult people of few words, hardly caring about the people around them. And surprisingly, this woman with them is one of the most polite mages there is. Finally, they had rested enough. They were ready to continue the expedition. After everyone stood up, the roar of a creature was heard by all. The sound was coming from the end of the hallway. Right after that, the ground also began to crack. Valtis realized the door had closed behind them. This made his team look in that direction. They saw a large magic portal open, and from it, a stone golem was emerging. The creature landed on the ground destructively. Its eyes were glowing with a threatening aura. Our protagonist was excited about this. He was already suspicious of the strength of the adversaries in these ruins. It seemed they would now have a real challenge, and that monster was the obstacle that needed to be overcome. The Horned Warrior already had his sword ready, but before he could do anything, the mage told him to get back immediately. Before the fight began, she would use one of her techniques. Reciting something in the ancient language, she made a great power appear at the tip of her staff. A large volume of rocks was hurled toward the creature, positioned above its head. The golem's single eye began to glow as well. It was at that moment that the expedition leader felt something was wrong. He said it was dangerous, ordering Tunisia to get out of the creature's way. Just as he had said, a sphere of energy appeared in front of the golem. The creature had fired something extremely destructive in their direction. Our protagonist and his companions were all on edge. It all happened too fast. They were already caught in an explosion. The arrogant mage realized in that moment that despite her vast knowledge, she was still mortal. Before her, the golem was ready to prove that no one lives forever. With a single blow, it defeated her. Even their horned companion was terrified watching it happen. The girl was arrogant, but she didn't deserve that end. The group was now missing a member. Our protagonist noticed his companion was in shock and desperately yelled for him to move, but the poor guy couldn't react. He was thrown forcefully against the nearest wall. His body suffered significant damage. For the monster, only 2 enemies remained to be defeated. Facing the danger, our protagonist asked if Valtis intended to get out of there alive. Fearfully, he said yes, and our protagonist ordered the young man to hold on tight. Without understanding what that meant, he was hit with a blow to the chin. This way, our protagonist managed to pull him from the fight. Speaking to the Mother of Corruption, he said there was no time for prayers this time. She needed to send that creature immediately. That's when the golem saw its new adversary. The pale, imposing creature launched into an attack. It struck the enemy monster with precision. While they were engaged in a fierce battle, our protagonist had the chance to escape. It's a real advantage to be able to count on that bizarre creature. In the process, our boy managed to absorb a few things, gaining divinity points. They were the weapons of his fallen companions. In a safe place, he managed to lay the expedition leader on the ground. But now, our protagonist needed to think about other things. The fight between those creatures would take a long time. That's when the Mother of Corruption began to speak to him, giving our boy a brilliant idea. He no longer wanted to waste time and decided to use his second authority to fight. He had only one target: that large metal monster that had defeated his companions. In fact, our protagonist wanted to claim the bluish gem on its head. With the pale creature's help, it would be very easy to get it. And since that stone was the only different part of its body, something must happen if it's destroyed. Given this, our protagonist decided to find out what would happen. After climbing onto the pale creature's body, he leaped toward the enemy, aiming directly for the blue sphere. He completely destroyed the object with the help of his sword. After landing that precise blow, our boy returned to the ground. It seemed his enemy could no longer move. With the battle over, the pale creature began to roar, having emerged victorious. Despite the roars, our protagonist thanked it for the help. It was at that exact moment that the Mother of Corruption pointed to something. Other portals appeared in that place, and more monsters, just like the first, were being summoned. It was then that our protagonist realized it would be very nice to have more than one change of clothes, because this time he would have to face several metal creatures. Even the pale monster he had summoned didn't like this idea. Our protagonist wondered how many he would have to face to get out safely. Later, the expedition leader managed to wake up, returning to the harsh reality. His companions had been defeated, and our boy was still lamenting what happened. He wished he could have saved them, but it all happened too fast. Valtis said that when the metal giant appeared, they should have activated the key. Now, full of regret, he believed the losses were due to his greed, but our protagonist informed him that those people were hired for a reason, and they were fully aware of what could have happened. Now they needed to understand where they were. Our protagonist said they were beyond the black door. At that moment, Valtis was completely bewildered. But then he came to his senses. Realizing he had been knocked out to be saved, he didn't want to ask our protagonist too many questions. He assured him that he would repay this debt somehow. Our boy was happy with this attitude, revealing he was eager to be paid in the future. In fact, he tended to accept people's offers. And if his companion was well enough, it was time to move because he hadn't defeated the metal giant. He had chosen to flee from all of them. Valtis, after hearing this, decided it was time to move forward. But after defeating that first enemy, our boy was confronted by 3 more. To escape, he left the albino giant to face the enemies alone. This way, he managed to open the door and push the expedition leader inside. The instruction he gave the albino giant was to return after it was all over. He just hoped the creature wouldn't be upset about it. After walking down that corridor, our boy found something. That seemed to be the end of these mysterious ruins. He instructed the expedition leader to examine the place. After entering the next hall, they found a guarded artifact as well as a small necklace. For them, this was confirmation that the stories in the books were completely real. Valtis had something to ask our protagonist, even though he acknowledged he had no right to do so. He wanted to keep the necklace, promising he would reward our protagonist for it, but our boy had no idea what that artifact could be. Valtis said it was called the Bloodline Pathfinder. If you place a sample on it and think of bloodline you're searching for, The necklace will use the user's sample to point the way. Our protagonist had a vague idea of what Valtis wanted to do with it, and to be frank, it was quite obvious. He wanted to find his own mother, a person he had never met. Given this, our boy asked if he could keep the sword that looked more like a saw. Honestly, it was a perfect fit for him. After collecting the items, they made a campfire outside. Valtis wanted to avoid any piece of metal bigger than him for the rest of his life. If they had lingered in that room any longer, things would have gotten very complicated. Valtis even started to believe they were going to perish, and because of that, he had something to say to our priest. He wanted to receive a blessing from him after such a dangerous journey. Our protagonist said he could do it immediately. Valtis then closed his eyes. With a drop of blood, he asked the goddess of preservation to protect them, which made the mother of corruption furious. Valtis was ready to use the artifact. He dripped a bit of his sample onto the necklace. Immediately, a mysterious energy manifested before them, and by all indications, the young man seemed to have received some guidance. An arrow appeared on it, pointing in a direction, giving him hope. He now knew his mother was alive. Our protagonist was happy the artifact was working. Valtis made it clear this only happened because of the young man and didn't know how to repay the debt. Our boy said he would accept his gratitude. Then, the young man revealed he had one last favor to ask. He wanted to continue working with our protagonist until he could find his mother. Since they were heading in the same direction, they could pass through the capital, so our protagonist could be rewarded for this job. Valtis guaranteed he would cover all the expenses for this trip as he had sufficient resources. Our protagonist was inclined to accept, but he was sure his true intentions would be read. He remained silent, staring at the campfire, while the young man waited for an answer, until the silence started to become awkward. Our protagonist didn't want to be seen as someone shallow, so he stood up and shook the young man's hand, promising he would assist him on this great journey. This brought great enthusiasm to Valtis. Back in the city, the secretary wasn't pleased to hear our protagonist was already leaving, especially after everything she had done for him. She found his behavior unacceptable, and the mother of corruption started to feel jealous. The girl asked to see our protagonist's hands, but he didn't understand what for. Usually, something like that isn't ready so quickly, but she had done her best to make it happen. And our boy was surprised by the gift he received, a mercenary's insignia, and it was made in record time. The receptionist now awaited our protagonist's words. Not knowing what to say, he just said thank you, but she wanted to hear a see you later and a promise that he would visit her. That was the answer he was supposed to give, and hearing it, the mother of corruption was displeased. With his eyes closed, our protagonist wanted to apologize to this girl. Since he lives a life of wandering, he might not be able to keep that promise. The girl said that if he kept living like this, he would never be able to date anyone and might end up alone. That's why she had something to say to him, wishing him a see you later, which left our protagonist very surprised. The girl wanted to see him there again soon, if he had the chance, and she hoped it would happen even sooner than he imagined. Confused by her words, the girl told him he didn't need to know everything, just keep thinking, because that was the last thing she would give him, a little lesson. After that, he went to meet the city's lord and was met with a difficult scene. The side effects of his condition were severe, and the poor demon's appearance was completely altered. But back to the main topic, he heard our protagonist was heading to the capital. He rushed to prepare everything as soon as he got the news. Our protagonist doesn't know what's in the envelope, but it's a letter of recommendation. The lord would have liked to pay with money, but he had exhausted his resources rebuilding the city. Since our boy is going to the capital, he wrote this letter of recommendation. It could be useful, as he has friends there. Since they are very difficult to deal with, the lord recommended not visiting them unless it was absolutely necessary. Our boy is grateful for the gift, and the lord said he did it as a friend, wishing him a wonderful life from now on because for all intents and purposes, life is always too short. Now our boy is already on his journey. It's been a few days since they left the city behind. Even so, they still have half a day's travel to reach the next destination. Even after all this time, the mother of corruption doesn't like our boy's new friend. She only accepted him for one reason. Valtis was assessed as having high potential. If his skills are analyzed, our boy will receive 10,000 divinity points. Not to mention he has the potential to become even more powerful. This makes our protagonist quite enthusiastic. He also likes his radiant personality, so he'd like to keep him around. But his thoughts were soon interrupted. Our protagonist immediately drew his sword. Valtis doesn't know what's happening, but our protagonist sensed a dangerous presence, and it's approaching their location very quickly. His sword is already poised for action, and something rushed past where they were. A giant spider is ready to face the pair. It emerged from the middle of the forest. Valtis was terrified when he looked at the monster, because this creature is absurdly large. A snow spider. It hurled something in his direction, but Valtis already has his bow ready. Even so, he wasn't fast enough and had to be saved by our protagonist, who managed to strike the creature, and managed to injure one of its legs. Our protagonist realized that the next time he used this sword, he would cause massive damage to this place. It seems he was overcome by a battle frenzy. He acted with impressive efficiency, but our boy was already consumed by this feeling of power. With our protagonist's departure from the city, the Lord received an interesting visitor. It's the blue-haired priestess. He apologizes for having her in a messy room, but the city was recently damaged. But she doesn't mind. This leads the Lord to ask the reason for her visit, as it's unusual for the blue flame of the torch sect to be there. Then she placed a paper on the man's desk for him to examine. She wants to know if he has seen a man who looks like that. Despite the vague description, he immediately recognized our protagonist. Before answering, he'd like to know what this man did to be wanted. The woman said it's for personal reasons. This made the Lord apologize, claiming he couldn't recall anyone specific. He suggested the blue-haired girl continue her journey, as he didn't have much time to waste on such meetings. She seemed to get the message, leaving his room immediately. But the Lord realized she didn't have good intentions toward our protagonist, and he hoped he was safe, as he couldn't tell him what was happening. In the middle of the frozen forest, our boy managed to defeat the monsters, but he wanted to know what his friend was doing. He said he was extracting the spider's venom. Its paralyzing effects are very potent and can be used in various ways. It's very useful for coating the tips of his arrows, and it's also a good item to sell. Our protagonist wants to know how he knows something like that, and the young man revealed he had been on many hunts, because there's nothing better than learning through experience, removing a venom gland in the process. Our girl was impressed by this, but she still decided to help him. Valtis decided he would teach our protagonist as they were close to the next town, and so when they arrived, they could take an excellent bath. Near the city gates, the guards are startled because they saw our protagonist and his friend approaching covered in filth. Immediately, one of the guards decided to approach them. Quite frightened, he asked how they managed to get there. Our protagonist said they did it on foot, and the guard revealed that the city had been blockaded for the last 3 days because of the monsters that had appeared. Showing interest in the matter, our protagonist asked for more details. Apparently, the attacks are becoming more frequent. When they investigate, they can't find any clues, not even the missing people. Valtis wants to know if the man is talking about the people attacked by the spiders. If so, that's very strange. The creature feeds on its victims, so it's very unusual for it to leave no trace. That's when someone called out to the two of them. The lord of that city wants to see them immediately, and the guard said he would take them to this person, leaving our protagonist and his friend quite curious. The lord received them with great enthusiasm. He knows of our protagonist's fame as a monster hunter and is honored to have him in his city. Our boy already knows about the situation they're facing with the creatures, which is why the Lord summoned them, revealing that it wasn't just caused by the monsters. It's an organization that follows an evil spirit. But our protagonist believes that blocking access to an entire city might be too grand a task for a small association of fanatics. But from what the Lord learned from the priests, there must be at least 4 sects involved in isolating this city. Kelton, compared to other regions, is a rather ordinary city. He doesn't know why this is happening right after he was appointed the new Lord. The Lord began to lament, wishing his father were still alive, as he would have known how to resolve this situation. At least they have plenty of food in the city, and the troops' morale has not yet been shaken. But since they are completely isolated, the other cities don't know what's happening yet. That's why they need people capable of getting past the monsters to bring this news to other regions. They need a squad of extremely brave and fearless people to accomplish this task. And the Lord looks intently at our protagonist, who seems to have gotten the message. He wants to comment on this task, promising that he would help in any way possible. Now, isolated in his room, he heard from the mother of corruption that he should have confronted the Lord and left. But our boy doesn't agree with that, as he received a very interesting item from these people. That can only be found in the eastern deserts. He never thought he would find that artifact here. This way, his blade will remain in perfect condition after use. He also learned from the mother of corruption that if he places his blade there, it will be enhanced. And that's exactly what our boy did. Living life with all its comforts is the best thing he can do right now. Our protagonist made sure to store the artifact in his inventory, and there's something he'd like to say about that. The real reason he accepted the task is that he thinks the game's true mission will begin soon. What led him to believe this is the collaboration of those fanatics. 4 sects is too many to cooperate. An adverse spirit might be intimidating, but in this game's universe, they don't have much power. It's just a title that the major deities give to the minor ones. But among the worshippers of these spirits, it's nearly impossible to find anyone who is mentally stable. In other words, it's unlikely for these individuals to cooperate with one another. That's why our protagonist has a feeling that something is up. This city's isolation is definitely not normal. Outside, he's already on his horse, ready to put the mission into action. It wasn't long before they were chased by the spiders. Our protagonist realized the time was coming. He told his friend he would draw the creature's attention, but the young man was very worried about this idea. Valtis believes that even for our protagonist, this could be very dangerous. But our boy knows they will soon be caught, and his companion must be aware of this too. What they need now are reinforcements, and our boy said that Valtis needs to return with them. After that, he abandoned his horse to stay behind, leaving his friend in a complete panic. Our protagonist thinks he just acted really cool, but the mother of corruption is utterly embarrassed. He jumped from the horse, landing in the soft snow. Meanwhile, his friend moves on to the next town. The others with them also watched it all unfold. Among the spiders, there are also ferocious wolves. Several dangerous creatures are in the middle of that frozen forest, but there is an existence even more threatening than all of them. Our protagonist made a great effort to put on an act in front of those people. Now, with his blade in hand, he's ready for the confrontation. It's time to face these creatures and find the worshippers of adverse spirits. The monsters are advancing toward our protagonist. unaware of the sad fate that awaits them. Our boy charges with his blade against all his enemies. It is truly efficient at causing destruction, defeating anyone who crosses his path. The spiders are neutralized before they know what happened, and the wolves are defeated with no chance to react. The snow is marked by the trail of the battle. Our boy realized that if he has to do this every day, it would be a good idea to start carrying a portable toilet. He'll talk to the mother of corruption about this soon. It seems the enemies already know he's coming, but they have no interest in welcoming him. About to enter what looks like a cave, our boy is quite excited. Inside the place, there are some objects. He remembered someone had said that the carriages attacked on their way to the city were empty. Soon he found the first traveler who didn't survive. Our boy looked to examine the scene. This poor citizen was a victim of the spiders. He even understands the monsters need to feed, but he doesn't understand the place's decoration, as several victims had been captured and stuck to the ceiling. Faced with the mother of corruption's concern, our boy told her to relax, as he won't let his guard down now. What he'd really like to know is how many people lost their lives here. There are far more than the spiders could consume in 3 days. While continuing to examine the cave, our boy noticed something. He entered a very large chamber. It almost looks like a giant's residence. And that's not all. He felt a very intense divine energy, along with great hostility. Our guy asked if the being wouldn't reveal itself, and a great red energy appeared. He already knew he was being watched by a giant spider, and it was in the company of its offspring. The creature is preparing to attack. It descended to the ground, making a huge impact in the process. Our protagonist asked the mother of corruption to create that magic barrier. Immediately, the floor of the cave began to transform, leaving our protagonist quite pleased, because now he can use his authority with great joy. The albino giant is also appearing, and our protagonist has a goal. That spider will be handed over to the mother of corruption, showing that dialogue is not an option. The albino giant arrived using force, while our protagonist is preparing to use the power of the Maori tattoos. The truth is, the albino giant's fight won't be easy. He is already being attacked by the spider. With its legs, it managed to injure the creature and push it back. The two giants are fighting violently and grimly. That's when our boy noticed that the spider is twice the size of his ally, and she is very determined to win. Given this, our protagonist needs to find a path to victory. The first thing he does is use his blade. With a few moves, he defeated some smaller adversaries, feeling he could now focus on the queen's body. That's why he'll make sure not to damage it yet. He was also advised by the mother of corruption that there must be some weak spot on her body. Before he could think about it, he noticed a spider decided to attack him, but it was soundly defeated with a single blow. And our boy seems to have understood something very interesting about the divinity within this monster's body. The best strategy would be to immobilize the creature's legs. Approaching the epicenter of the combat, he ordered the albino giant to rush forward, promising he would help him this time. All our protagonist needs is for this spider to stop moving. As soon as he received his new mission, the albino giant began to carry it out, grabbing the spider's legs with his hands. At least he has more than two. The spider soon realized it was being immobilized, and while all this happens, our protagonist approaches decisively. His enemy may be large, but in the end, it's still a spider, and he will strike the weak point between the two parts of its body. Our boy managed to land a precise blow on the thinnest part of that monster. He is determined to do it again and attacking the creature with his blade. The spider sensed that staying in this position could be fatal, and our boy continued using his sword, delivering as many blows as possible. The impact of the clash echoes throughout the cave. The spider, unfortunately, will no longer be able to move. Our protagonist will make sure of that. The albino giant continues to hold its victim while our protagonist prepares to use all his power. Their collaboration seems to have been very effective. Still holding part of the spider's body, the albino giant broke two of its legs, a process made easier by our boy's strikes. Now that it's all over, the giant seems very upset with our protagonist, who apologized for what he had done last time. Showing great passion, the giant shouted furiously, and our protagonist heard the complaints of an unknown person. Someone was hidden in the shadows watching the entire battle. It's a woman, and she was inside the spider's body. As soon as he saw that, our boy said he already knew it was a person. But this woman seems completely enraged. She wants to know who our protagonist thinks he is to interfere with her plans, claiming he's also a follower of an adverse spirit just like her. Saying he doesn't know how much time she lost to gain control of that queen, he gets straight to the point and asks her purpose in that city. The woman said she wouldn't tell, but our protagonist has his methods of persuasion. He presses his blade against her to show he's serious. Now that he has her attention, he repeated the question, but the woman remains defiant. Realizing she's in a fragile situation, she began to smile, promising she wouldn't reveal the truth even if her life were ended. That wasn't exactly what our boy wanted to hear, and the woman realized she was facing a truly dangerous person because he defeated her for good. Our protagonist realizes he's not good at interrogations. Thanks to this victory, he also gained 1,000 divinity points. After doing that, our boy doesn't know how many followers will be willing to tell the truth, and according to the mother of corruption, there are 3 more here. Our boy also absorbed the queen's energy and hopes the others in the cave are very stubborn. After leaving the cave, our boy returned to the city only to find it completely burned down. It seems the enemy won. His colleague is also no longer among the living. The ones responsible for this didn't like to waste time. There was a lot of work to defeat him. A blonde man wants to know how the incarnation is going, and a woman said it's unstable, as it's not easy to extract divinity from living organisms. And besides this process not being completely ready, they lost some allies. The black-haired woman was furious as they need to move forward with the plans, even if the chance of success is low. She also said she didn't do it on purpose. In fact, she did her best. But those men were getting in the way, the guards who were there to protect the individual. If they had help from some spiders, it would have been easier. Unfortunately, the man with the bow and arrow managed to escape, and the woman is sure they should have captured him. The woman with the eye patch noticed that Leela, possibly the spider woman, hasn't arrived yet, but even if she were there to help, she would just waste time on the fallen. For the blonde man, this discussion is over. They don't need to keep arguing. Since one person escaped the city, troops will soon be sent to stop them. And now they need to remember how many years were invested to make this plan a reality. The black-haired woman warned that she knows this very well and doesn't want to see the blonde man continue playing the leader. She didn't let that individual escape on purpose and won't accept any more criticism for letting someone get away. Noticing all this agitation, the one-eyed woman believes her coworker is going through personal problems. She also knows that her two colleagues are getting close and they might have had problems in their relationship. Given this, she will give them some privacy, which only made the other woman even more furious. That's when the blonde man told them to stop arguing, as he will blame the escape on the spider woman, and that seems to have pleased his companion. Now she will finally be quiet, but soon the one-eyed woman was suddenly defeated. It's our protagonist who has just arrived, and he is ready to start confrontation with these people, using his bread slicer as a weapon. The blonde man, witnessing this, was terrified. He didn't even have time to react and was quickly defeated. The only person left standing is that woman who won't stop complaining. She's trying to understand what's happening, as part of our protagonist was consumed by the flames. Desperate, the woman said that no one defeats the last person standing without asking questions, and our boy agreed. But those people there can also manipulate divinity, which could be dangerous for our protagonist. Wanting to avoid any side effects, he said he would attack. The woman asked why our boy was talking to himself. That's when he noticed something. The woman is completely terrified. Our boy decided to take advantage of the situation. He knows she's a worshiper of evil spirits, so he asked what the purpose of the siege on the city was. After a few minutes, he was stunned by the answer. The planning took 3 years. He was taken to the city square to see something huge. The woman said that if it wasn't for something like this, wasting so much time wouldn't have been worth it. This woman's name is Parna, and she gave up the information as soon as she was questioned. In short, the story is very simple. They wanted to use the life force of everyone in the city to create a sphere called an incarnation. To complete their plans, they had to hide on the city's outskirts for the past 3 years, but they still needed 5 more days of preparation. But thanks to recent events, they had to rush. Now our boy is getting his weapon ready for action. The woman is terrified of her potential future. Our protagonist said he will defeat this monster, which was strengthened with the energy of innocence. Parna screams desperately for him not to do it, but our boy ignores her complaints. That's when the woman said something will happen if the creature is in danger. Our boy was struck by a malevolent energy. This monster will awaken completely unstable if attacked like this, and it didn't like being hurt. Its monstrous form keeps repeating the same phrase, "That hurts." From the middle of that mass, an albino monster was born. Our boy brought a hand to the wound on his shoulder. He learned from the mother of corruption that there is a sacred relic inside that creature. It's time to awaken a new authority and perform a great ritual for his mother. The woman, watching everything in complete terror, doesn't understand our protagonist's actions. She believes none of this will work, and since she wouldn't stop talking, our boy had to stop her permanently. That was her punishment. Thanks to this, our boy gained a few more divinity points, and in total, he has an incredible 8,500 points. He managed to extract a lot of divinity from those who fell in that place. Now he's very eager to get his new authority, because he has a powerful monster to defeat now. He also realized his weapon's attacks are useless, as the creature regenerates quickly. Meanwhile, if he keeps getting injured, he'll end up losing this fight. Unlike the Spider Queen, he hasn't been able to identify a weak spot on this monster yet. There is only one choice for our protagonist. Prepared to execute it, he held his sword firmly. He fled the dark combat immediately, leaving even the creature surprised. It watches intently as our protagonist moves away, only to scream with all its fury. Moving through the city, our boy managed to absorb the divinity of one of the fallen. He only needs a few more points to awaken his next authority, and as he passes the fallen, he can absorb this energy. He decides he'll keep doing this until he has enough points to awaken his next authority. All this while the monster continues to chase its prey. This has just turned into a game, which makes our boy excited. If he gets caught, he loses. If he awakens his authority, he'll be the winner. The furious creature seems to be using some kind of ability, and its single eye began to glow. Our protagonist felt something different in his body. He was caught in the shockwave caused by the scream. Even the sound waves possess divine power. This thing is definitely a walking disaster. Tentacles are now sprouting from the creature's body. This made our protagonist realize he needs to use his sword immediately. With its strength, the monster shattered everything in front of its tentacles, but it wasn't able to hit our protagonist, who is now asking the mother of corruption for help. A huge portal opened above the monster's head. and he realized another albino creature is joining the battle in the city. The protagonist's creature arrived ready for a confrontation, striking its enemy with all its might, completely devastating the city square. Our protagonist had already imagined something like this would happen. He watches the great albino giant intently, which is now being struck by the creature's tentacles, but just one giant of corruption won't be enough to win this battle. Our boy recommended that his creature not overexert itself, as he would return soon. But to do that, he needs to absorb the energy of those who fell, preferably well-trained soldiers. The flames have already consumed most of the remains. This made our boy realize that too much time had passed. He might not be able to absorb what he needs. If he had known something like this would happen, he would have prepared a little better. Even so, our protagonist has already managed to gather 9,200 points. He's close to getting his new authority. That's why he keeps running through the city without stopping. Until he was surprised by a strange noise, he saw with his own eyes that something shattered on the path ahead. Our protagonist had to shield himself from the approaching debris. At the same time, he drew his sword to protect himself. The monster's tentacles are already there too. He was nearly defeated, saved only by his weapon. Our protagonist is using his combat skills to stay on his feet, and the monster is determined to defeat him at any cost. It manages to surprise our protagonist by approaching from above. As soon as the creature landed, it also destroyed a large part of the ground, but it still hasn't been able to hit our protagonist effectively. It seems the creature's face and body have started to change, and this was immediately noticed by our protagonist. His adversary seems to have undergone some kind of maturation after fighting against the giant of corruption. The two are now facing each other, ready to deliver some great combat scenes. Looking at our protagonist, the creature extended its hand towards him, while showing an extremely malevolent smile. From its arm, several tentacles were launched in our boy's direction. He watched the approach of this attack very carefully. He managed to stop the tentacles that got too close to his body. Apparently, the creature didn't expect things to happen this way, and our protagonist decided that attacking was the best solution. But as soon as he got close to the creature, he could see that it was also prepared for this. It managed to use its tentacles to completely immobilize our boy's body. Now that it has him immobilized, the monster is going to strike back, manipulating its tentacles to throw our boy as if he were an object. Looking up, our boy realized he was on a collision course with the ground, resulting in a completely powerful and devastating impact. A large cloud of dust and debris was kicked up, and at the epicenter of the impact is our protagonist. He told the mother of corruption that everything is fine and that, in fact, he's very lucky. Apparently, she doesn't remember what the worshippers of that evil spirit said in their final moments. In his final moments, his companion had been protected by very capable soldiers, and our protagonist ended up in a very opportune place, near those who had fallen. Far away, the creature watches the dust cloud, clenching its fists, filled with fury. It began to scream uncontrollably, as if announcing the destruction it was about to cause. But our protagonist is already completely calm, offering the essence of the fallen to the mother of corruption. A spiritual fire began to consume it. Slowly, our boy's divinity points are accumulating, all thanks to the energy he managed to absorb at the last moment. Finally, our beloved protagonist has earned the necessary points to unlock his next authority. It seems the creature felt it too, because our protagonist is ready to ask for the mother of corruption's blessing, offering the divinity points he had accumulated so far, immediately asking for a new authority to be granted to him. Watching all this, the creature understood that its fate could be short and far from easy, as a great darkness engulfed our protagonist, and these shadows spread throughout the entire city. The creature saw our protagonist approaching it very calmly, unsure of what could have caused this. Like a formidable adversary, our protagonist is approaching with his weapon, and he promised that the creature would be stopped. Even though it's a creature of few words, the monster seems to have understood the message. Our boy told the creature to pay close attention to his next words, but the monster decided to ignore him, releasing more tentacles ready to attack again. This new authority of our boy is called the Corruption Hole. It's capable of affecting all living beings that enter it. Our protagonist is no exception to this rule, and he managed to use the text of corruption to fight. Covered in special marks, he can choose which parts of his being are affected first, picking those that aren't necessary for battle. That's when the monster realized it had already been hit. Our boy is very curious to see what will happen with this creature's regeneration. It can't be more powerful than his new authority. With the help of his blade, our protagonist continued the fight with great skill. Soon, the creature learned to retreat, begging our boy to stop. Its form was now completely weakened. Finally, our protagonist defeated his enemy with a final blow. He gained access to the relic that was inside the creature. As a result, he offered the artifact to the Mother of Corruption. This allowed her to destroy another seal. As the relic was absorbed, a great luminous energy manifested. Everything returned to normal and daylight broke over the city. Our boy looks around, trying to understand what happened. He notices a little girl is now in the square as well. Still very confused, our protagonist tries to figure out if this is real. But this small child bears a striking resemblance to the hand he used to carry. She must be the Mother of Corruption. As he's thinking about this, the little girl decides to approach him. She really is the mother of corruption. Our protagonist felt it the moment he first saw her, but he doesn't understand why she would ask him why she appeared as a child since she should have that answer. In fact, our protagonist has a few questions of his own to ask. The energy of another entity is present in that creature, and our protagonist wants to know if she can absorb it. It would be a great shame to let that energy go to waste. Immediately, the mother of corruption pointed her hand at the remaining energy. Now she's trying to absorb it, but no matter how hard she tries, she ends up completely frustrated. Our protagonist told her not to try so hard if it isn't possible. Since the energies of the deities are mixed, it's probably impossible to absorb it all. So there's nothing they can do now. At least they managed to break another seal with the help of that sacred relic. Our protagonist now asked for the mother of corruption's help once more. The little girl's eyes began to glow. A new authority is about to be granted to our boy. A huge flash of light filled the devastated city. The energy is so immense it can be seen from miles away. Our protagonist wants to know the meaning of the new authority he just received. He hears from the mother of corruption that he should use this power as much as he wants. He found that a bit interesting and curious, as it's a very powerful authority. What he has just received is the Curse of Corruption, an authority with great destructive potential. All living beings within his range, which is as large as a small city, will slowly begin to weaken. Our protagonist isn't afraid to use this against his adversaries, but harming innocents to gain power is not something he wants to do. Now he wants to find out why a relic like that was inside the incarnation. It might not be a coincidence. Perhaps the Mother of Corruption's power was used to create that creature. The thought deeply disturbs our protagonist, because there's an even bigger problem to solve now, since our boy has received several interesting powers. Completely exhausted from the battle, he collapsed to the ground with no strength left to stand, a clear sign that his body couldn't take any more. He had finally reached his limit. As he slowly loses consciousness, our boy watches the Mother of Corruption cry, until finally he opened his eyes. Valtis managed to find our boy and is very grateful that he's awake, but our protagonist is bothered by something. He can't feel the hand hanging on his chest, so he gets up agitated, demanding to know where his things are. His friend tells him to calm down a bit, promising to explain everything. But our protagonist remains agitated until he hears the voice of the Mother of Corruption. That seems to have caught his attention, and Valtis appears to be holding something in his hands. It's the amulet our protagonist carries. He only got scared like that because he thought he had lost the amulet. Valtis knows it holds deep meaning for our protagonist. Even though he was told to get rid of it, he kept it so our protagonist could have it back. This made our young man incredibly grateful. He doesn't even know how to thank him. Valtis was embarrassed by our young man's reaction, saying it was nothing. Because if it weren't for the great sacrifice he made, Valtis is sure he would have died before getting out of the city. This makes our protagonist wonder where they are now, only to find out they're still in the city of Kelton. Our boy wants to know how long he was unconscious, and to his surprise, it was a total of 10 days. He asks if there were any survivors from the great confrontation. It seems only one person survived in that city, and that person is our protagonist. Far away, in another place, someone confronted one of the men. The individual seems to be trying to escape from some pursuers. Unable to move his leg, he fell to the ground. A woman walks calmly through this place, and her presence makes all the other men terrified. It's the blue-haired priestess, and the injured man is begging for his life. The priestess doesn't seem very merciful. The poor man continues to plead, desperate. The woman tells him he will certainly never be able to walk again. He promised he wouldn't try to run away again, but she has already drawn her sword. Looking at her, the man keeps insisting, but he is ultimately defeated. After doing this, the priestess began to pray, asking for the invocation of the sacred flame, causing the man's essence to be purified by the heat. The others who witnessed this are now even more frightened. Turning her attention to them, the blue-haired woman ordered them to get moving. And that's exactly what they are doing now. All of them have their hands tied. They are clearly prisoners. As they travel, the blue-haired woman watches them with her sword. They have a long journey ahead of them across the frozen sea. A guard asks if these men will be handed over to him. In front of him is a prisoner who appears to be badly injured. He and his companions are on their knees begging the guard. They ask to be put in jail as they don't want to be in the company of the blue-haired woman. If it were up to her, these men wouldn't be here anymore. The guard explained that the Lord of Kelton was the one who put a bounty on these men, but he fell after being attacked by worshippers of evil spirits, and it will take some time before the reward can be delivered. The guard also mentioned that the worshippers, as well as the creature they summon, were all defeated by our protagonist. He was unconscious for 10 days due to the fierce battle, but he has just woken up. The priestess is very interested in the demon hunter, as that is our protagonist's reputation, so she began to question the guard about him. He must be the greatest enemy of these evil worshippers, and she wants to know if our protagonist will be staying in this city for long. In the city tavern, things are very lively. Someone is trying to find out from the drunks where our protagonist is. Just mentioning his name makes all the drunks cheer, celebrating everything he has done. While they are celebrating intensely, the blue-haired priestess is waiting for an answer, hearing from those men that our protagonist is the greatest enemy of the evil spirits. Outside the city, some horses are approaching very quickly. In fact, it's our protagonist and his faithful companion Valtis. By all indications, they are fleeing. Our boy heard the message from the man in the other city. He was informed that there's a blue-haired girl who's very interested in him, and it doesn't seem to be the kind of interest a man would be flattered by. Quite scared, he asked if she knows he's alive. The man said she didn't seem sure, but he noticed something obvious. This woman will definitely not pass up the chance to find our boy. That's why they had to leave the city immediately. After hearing some advice from the mother of corruption, our young man said he already knows. It would be too dangerous to stay in Kelton. He must know by now. The blue-haired woman looking for him is the strongest among all humans, rated at 4.5 fingers by the mother of corruption. Since their departure was unexpected, our boy thanked Valtis for agreeing to it. The truth is, he liked the suggestion, as he also dislikes receiving too much attention. After hearing this, our protagonist was sure he really likes his new friend, which made the mother of corruption quite jealous. 2 weeks have passed and they are still traveling. Valtis says he could be wrong, but the carriage ahead of them belongs to the enrollment family. They watch the caravans approach carefully. Our protagonist knows this family belongs to the High Lord who lives in the south. Their symbol is a white flower, a camellia. Our boy wonders if they should greet them since they are about to meet, and it might be a good idea. It's very likely someone important is in that caravan. Valtis suggested they make way in silence. Finally, the two groups met. Our protagonist continues to walk calmly. That's when he felt something peculiar. It led him to approach Valtis, as he knows there's someone tied up inside that carriage. Right after that, the soldiers from the caravan prepared to attack. One of them said he'd let the two of them pass if they didn't interfere, but that's not what happened. Now they would have to face the consequences. Before long, an intense confrontation began. The enemies were quickly overwhelmed in combat. The bandits were using their swords to attack. That's when their leader realized things weren't going as planned. Our protagonist is using his blade to handle the situation, as he knows these people are kidnappers. Only 8 enemies are left to be defeated. Their leader is already terrified. He told his men to hurry up, that they needed to end this immediately, saying they shouldn't be afraid of just 2 people. This prompted all the bandits to charge, while their leader watched intently. Even though he was far away, he was hit by an arrow and neutralized. Our protagonist's friend is a really good shot. Right after that, he noticed someone nearby was unwell. Our boy is already helping the person who was tied up. Valtis wants to know if they've found out her name, but given the immediate circumstances, they're in no position to ask questions. Apparently, the woman still can't move properly. Her eyes have been closed this whole time, and she might belong to the enrollment family. The girl finally said she didn't need any more help, but confessed she still felt very unwell. Valtis was immediately struck by the woman's presence, and she's thanking them for saving her, revealing that she is the eldest daughter of Kalto Iremel. Her name is Dakia. Since our protagonist's friend knows these people, he's aware that the man's eldest daughter is a mage. Our protagonist never imagined he'd be traveling in the company of a nobleman and a mage. Just by looking at her, he got the impression she might be rude despite her noble demeanor. Valtis said they could worry about that later, as he could tell the girl has a big heart. While the two were whispering, the girl discreetly asked for their attention. She wanted to know the names of those who saved her, even though she noticed our protagonist is a priest. Our young man said he's a worshiper of the goddess of preservation, and that he can be called Marcos. The girl really liked that name. In fact, she has a favor to ask him. Since she's having trouble walking properly, she'd like some help. She was forced to inhale an anesthetic gas, and it seems it's still active in her system. Valtis didn't miss the opportunity. While introducing himself, he offered to help her. The girl asked if he really wanted to do that. If he were seen walking with her, and if those rumors spread to the capital, he would be in serious trouble. People might get the wrong idea, and there would be much she could do to help him. The girl then asked our protagonist if she wasn't right. And indeed, our protagonist wasn't wrong about her nobility, let alone her skills as a mage. What's truly surprising is that she's someone who thinks of others so easily. Valtis decided to ask what had happened for her to end up in a situation like that. The woman doesn't have any concrete evidence about the culprit yet, but she has a very strong intuition about it. It was all planned by her brother, who has always hated her, and that wretched man's name is Durso. Dakia repeated that she had always been despised by her brother, and that this all must have been his plan. Valtis was obviously troubled by the news and quite surprised by it. The girl explained she'd recently received a marriage proposal from the Dragon King. Since she is next in line for the succession, her brother has plenty of motivation to get rid of her. Our boy listened intently, acknowledging that even a degenerate must have reasons for such an act. But on top of being a noble, that girl also has a command of magic. This certainly makes her a major target in her family, an unwanted person. The rule is that nobles hate mages, and there's a reason for that. That's why they intensely hate it when mages are born into their families. The first reason is the natural behavior of mages. It's hard to teach them basic etiquette. They also tend to be very extravagant, and wielding the power of nobility, they become catalysts for trouble. A good reason for mages not to have access to so much power, and there's a very old legend about this. It dates back to a time before the empire itself, a story passed down through generations. The era of the Mad Mages. Thanks to the widespread acceptance of this story, people tend to hate mages in positions of power. That's why when she said she was a mage aspiring to an even more influential position in the Northern Kingdom, our boy wanted to know her motivations for such an impossible task, unless she was willing to take down her own brother. This ended up occupying his thoughts. At least that would have been the case if she had only told the story once. Dakia now asked them both to be honest with her. She wanted to know if they were even paying attention. Answering her, Valtis said he understood the marriage was just an excuse, and he figured her family was trying to sell her off to another kingdom. And that's exactly what she believes. The protagonist acknowledged that he had paid attention to everything she said. He pointed out, however, that she had told that story at least 3 times, and he hoped she'd understand why they couldn't focus solely on her. In fact, while she was telling the story, the meat on her skewer burned. So our boy offered her the meat he was cooking, saying he would eat the burnt piece himself. Dakia was very enthusiastic about this small kindness. Our boy believes that next time she'll pay more attention to what she's doing, but that can only happen if she learns to talk less while cooking. The girl realized his words were a correction of her behavior, and she didn't like it very much. After they finished their meal, she asked if she could make them a proposal. Our boy was expecting something like this. Dakia wanted to be taken to Beatus, a territory belonging to her family. If they were able to complete this task, Dakia stated that she would pay them generously, the equivalent of each of their weights in raw gold, a proposal that awakened the protagonist's inner capitalist. He knew nobles were wealthy, but he hadn't expected such generosity from Dakia. Still, he already had a client at the moment. Escorting the young woman would delay Valtis's search for his mother. Besides, Valtis had proven to be an excellent friend, saving our boy's amulet, which could have been destroyed in a fire. The boy decided he would go along with Valtis's decision, while his greedy side told him he should start gaining weight to increase the reward. He had no desire to become obese just for that reason. Finally, Valtis raised his hand firmly, acknowledging that they were already involved in this story. He assured her they would take responsibility for it too, until the very end to honor their own name. Continuing their journey, the small caravan could finally see the next village approaching on the horizon. They were very much looking forward to the opportunity to take a hot bath. Arriving in town, they decided to enter the nearest tavern. Valtis had already managed to book rooms for everyone, and a hot bath was also being prepared. It was time to take care of their hygiene and get ready for a nice meal together. An enthusiasm that spread to his friends. A beautiful spread was presented to them. Dakia didn't even know where to start. In moments like these, our boy deeply lamented his inability to taste flavors. While he was eating, he noticed a commotion at the next table. The rude man was harassing the waitress, who was already feeling very uncomfortable. This prompted the head of security to ask the jerk to control himself. But the drunk didn't think he was doing anything wrong. He kept complaining loudly, completely ignoring the warnings he was given. Valtis sensed a conflict was about to break out and asked our boy if they should help, but someone in their group had already sprung into action. The drunk's face was met with a violent punch. Dakia definitely has no patience for this kind of situation. Her blow was so powerful that the drunk was sent flying as if he were a sack of potatoes. The people with him were now unleashed, and our protagonist realized a conflict was inevitable. Before one of them could attack the girl, our protagonist gently grabbed him by the head, slamming his face onto the smooth surface of the table so he could rethink his actions. After losing his smile, the man seemed to enter a state of deep meditation. This made our protagonist let him go, as his job had been successfully completed. Dakia thanked him for the help, and the tavern workers were also very pleased. Valtis was still trying to restrain the last troublemaker and noted that his friends should have warned him they were going to act. After all, they were a team now. That's when Dakia revealed she's been doing this since she was a child. She can't contain herself in the face of injustice. These words made our protagonist watch her with even deeper attention. She doesn't seem to have a problem with anger, but rather a problem with justice. Valtis took the opportunity to confiscate some items from the troublemakers, handing a small pouch to our protagonist. It was given to the tavern owner as compensation for the damage that had been caused. Money that came from the pockets of those idiots. As night fell, someone started knocking on Dakia's door. This made her ask who was outside. She soon found out it was our protagonist. She decided to let him in, wanting to know what he was doing there. But our boy grabbed her. He then slammed a knife into the wall right next to her. He told her she needed to be very quiet from now on so as not to wake the others. In a threatening manner, our boy asked if she understood his warning. The reason behind our boy's actions was exactly what Dakia had said earlier about not being able to stand injustice. They were currently being pursued. They needed to avoid attracting unnecessary attention. If she continued to behave this way, our protagonist would have no choice but to hurt her and hand her over to her pursuers. That would be a very tragic end for her. But our boy believed in Dakia's redemption. If she understood the meaning of his words, she should nod slowly for him. The girl was still overcome with deep fear. Even so, our protagonist got what he wanted. Ending the intense interaction, he wished her a good night, leaving a very frightened Dakia behind. Even the mother of laments thought our protagonist's attitude was a bit extreme, but he had to do it before the situation became even more dangerous. They still have things to discover on this journey, especially regarding Dakia Iramal, and whether she truly has a compulsive disorder that makes her react to injustice. The news of Dakia's escape from the ambush had already spread. The messenger tried to tell his boss that there were many unforeseen variables, and to continue the mission, more money would be needed. This information made the client completely furious. He had already paid an exorbitant amount of money. In light of this, he asked the messenger to approach him, only to be slapped across the face. This was the secret organization Isla, and this was manager Hilden. After slapping him, the man demanded to know why he needed to provide more money, not accepting losses as a justification. because if he heard that again, the poor man would end up paying dearly. Hilden immediately remembered something. He has a family to support. Their lives would all be in danger if he failed his job. Completely humiliated, he bowed his head to the floor, revealing that the reason the mission failed was the presence of a priest of the goddess of preservation. That was the real reason everything went wrong. The man who hired the service did not like hearing this news. It was unacceptable to him that a single priest had been able to sabotage his entire plan. But that small man knows our protagonist. Marcos is no ordinary priest. He was able to defeat a demon that had transformed into a massive giant using only a single sword. Soon after, in the city of Kelton, he defeated a monster created by evil spirit worshippers, which caused the death of everyone in the city. He did this all by himself, earning the title Bane of Evil Spirits. Knowing of these accomplishments, the man is now a bit more flexible. Knowing our protagonist is traveling with Valtis, it's plausible he managed to rescue Dakia. Now he's willing to pay extra to get the job done. However, he made it clear he won't tolerate another failure. This is the third prince of the Dragon Kingdom, Vadis Draco, and there are others who want to harm the girl. With the negotiations successful, Hilden felt a sense of relief as he can now return home safely. While feeding the mother of corruption, our protagonist is questioning if he was too harsh on the princess, since she seems like the type of person who would have understood. The mother of corruption disagrees. In fact, she thinks our protagonist is too concerned about this woman's life. As they're talking, someone decides to knock on his bedroom door. Our protagonist asked who was outside. It's Dakia, the person he just finished talking to. Our boy let her in. Very embarrassed, Dakia stepped inside. Even so, something in the room caught her eye. She hadn't imagined the priest would be having a meal so late at night. But our boy explained he was a bit hungry. Asking if she could sit in the chair, Dakia said she also had a few things to ask our guy. She ended up sitting on the bed, waiting for him to speak. Dakia wanted to know if the reason she was worn like that was because she's a mage. Our protagonist fell silent, and after a moment's thought, he answered yes. This made the girl sigh in relief. She had been sure of the reason. The way the priest looked into her eyes reminded her of past situations, a look she was used to, from people who had been hurt by mages before. They all look at the girl that way, with those cold eyes. Even so, this experience was quite new. She could feel our priest's animosity toward her, but the way he used his words was to tell her to behave better from now on since they are companions. This left our boy embarrassed, and for good reason. The people who looked at her with those eyes always tried to do something bad to her. And being completely honest with our priest, if she witnesses another injustice, she really doesn't know if she'll be able to ignore it. However, she promised she would deliberate on it with our boy as he suggested now that they are companions. That's the reason Dakia visited him in his room. With nothing more to share, she said she was leaving and wished him a good night. Before she could leave, the priest asked her to wait. Acknowledging he had been too hard on her, he admitted he had been rude and ill-mannered. This apology brought a smile to the girl's face. She said he had looked at her the right way for the first time, and that made her very happy. Our boy was surprised by this reaction. But for Dakia, they had put an end to it, with no hard feelings. Something our boy agreed with, stating he had no hard feelings on his part either. Dakia said she was very much looking forward to continuing this journey with our protagonist. Alone and feeding the mother of corruption, our boy thought that in the end, mages are still just people. He realized he could be very foolish at times as he was now facing the truth he had always avoided. Even so, the mother of corruption remains very jealous, and our protagonist decided they would drop the subject, but he continued to feed the creature. Outside the tavern, some men are gathering. One of them forced his way inside as he's looking for Marcos, the priest. He ordered that Marcos be brought to him immediately. Otherwise, everyone in that place would suffer dire consequences. Far away, holding a letter, a man came to the conclusion that something did make sense. It was a request to capture the lady of the Iramel family who has silver hair and golden eyes. What really did make sense was the priest's presence in that request, whose title is Bane of Evil Spirits. This is the famous priest Marcos. As he thought about this, someone called out to Sajida. His men managed to find the priest, but the girl wasn't with him. Sajida stands up furiously, demanding to know where the priest is now, as he can't imagine he'd want to start a conflict. As soon as he steps out of his tent, he hears a man's complaints, begging to be let go. This is the same reckless man from the last chapter, who arrogantly entered the tavern demanding our protagonist's presence. This left Sajida very worried. He ordered all his men to lower their weapons as the situation was getting out of control. Knowing the risk our protagonist posed, he reinforced the order with much more authority. Only then did his men finally calm down. And to think these men were distracted when he accepted this request. Now they are all in big trouble. Our protagonist noticed the man's approach. The worry is visible on his face, which is already sweating profusely. Trying to be very polite, Sajida asked if by any chance he was speaking with the great priest Marcos. After confirming the information, Sajida asked our boy to please carefully release the person he was holding. Finally, the man was let go by our boy. Next, he said he'd like to have a word with the captain of that mercenary team. This made Sajida stammer a bit. Formally introducing himself to our protagonist, he said he is the captain of the Red Bear mercenaries and he is at our boy's service. They soon went inside his cabin. Our boy refused the strong drink he was offered, but Sajida drank gulp after gulp, thinking it might make the conversation with the priest easier, realizing there was no other option but to give up. However, our boy said he heard something interesting from a colleague who came looking for him that morning, that this captain wanted to meet them. These words made Sajida visibly uncomfortable. Our boy figures the rumors of what happened the day before must have spread. Cornered, Sajida has no idea what to do now. He doesn't know whether to get straight to the point or test our boy's patience. His target is the silver-haired girl, and right now, he has a commitment to the organization called Isla. The rumors say this priest is terrifying, and if there's one thing the captain doesn't want, it's to remain in his presence. This is all his vice captain's fault, who is completely reckless. His name is Pelguin. As they are gathered in the cabin, someone is approaching. It's the vice captain himself, who says he's feeling terrible. He heard the priest showed up spontaneously, a sign that he is a brave man. Pelguin, after entering, began speaking directly to our boy. Knowing this is Marcos, he also wanted to know if there was a golden-haired girl traveling with him. Our protagonist confirmed this, and to the vice captain, this was wonderful, as he had something to say. He ordered the girl to be handed over and the priest to leave, unless, of course, he wanted his life to end right there. The poor guy didn't even finish his sentence before our protagonist put his sword to work. The vice captain was quickly disarmed and subdued. A scream of surprise and pain filled the air. This makes the other mercenaries desperate as well. Our protagonist said he found that funny, as he doesn't remember telling any of those men his name. Yet, here they were in his presence, calling him by his first name so familiarly. With his sword drawn, he demands to know who is behind these actions, as he'd like to meet them. News of what happened began to spread throughout the camp. All the men are heading to the captain's tent. They believe the priest is underestimating the team's strength, as it's made up of very brave men. Some want to attack our boy, but their wish is becoming a curse, as the men are being easily defeated. Still, they are willing to face this tough battle. Sajida, on the other hand, remains paralyzed with fear. His vice captain is begging for help. That won't even be necessary, as our boy will end this confrontation soon, since there's no reason to spare that opponent. However, a sharp spear is cutting through the air. She was placed in the path of our protagonist's blade, saving the man's life. This action surprised our boy. He never imagined the captain would act that way. In fact, this was what he most wanted to avoid, but things had become far too complex. To understand why, we must go back 15 years, as the relationship between these men runs deep. Our boy's blade remains sharp, and the spear that was used against him is still being wielded dangerously. A fierce battle is happening now, until the tip of the captain's spear broke and he no longer has his main weapon. Deciding to act quickly, he got rid of the wooden shaft. He grabbed a piece of canvas with his free hand. Throwing the fabric towards our protagonist, our boy immediately slices through it, but the captain was already retreating, telling all his men to do the same. They can't get in that priest's way. Those who were slow to understand the message were quickly neutralized. The situation became desperate for them. Those still standing decided to obey the captain. They are leaving behind a scene of complete defeat. Far enough away, the captain picked up another weapon, knowing that things are still very dangerous. A voice says something, and our protagonist agrees with it. There is someone he needs to find here. This is the person who asked to track our protagonist, because their fate will be sealed. The captain is determined this time he must stop our boy. He throws a very sharp spear in his direction, but our protagonist wouldn't be taken down so easily and use one of the mercenaries as a shield. Immediately, the priest prepared to attack. That scene left the captain worried, because the priest is about to charge forward with his sword. There was only one alternative to buy time, and that was a strategic retreat, until the captain can finally increase his chances of victory again. He went back to holding his spear. With it, he can at least trade a few blows with the protagonist, but he soon realized this effort would be in vain. In the middle of the fight, he gave a message stating that Pelguin is in the cabin. All this while he is busy fighting our protagonist. The blows between them are becoming increasingly dangerous. Our protagonist is determined to end this as quickly as possible. This time, he gets closer to strike with his own fists, landing a powerful blow on the captain. It created a considerable shockwave. Any normal person would have been defeated. Right after the impact, the priest began to show a very faint smile. His fists had hit something solid, and he said it had been a while since that last happened. The experience of fighting someone prepared for battle. The priest's punch only dented the captain's armor. Even so, he felt the impact of it, which put him on alert. In that situation, the captain ordered his men to attack. Worried, the priest looks back, trying to spot any archers who might pose a threat. This made him create distance from his opponent, purely out of caution, since getting hit in a joint would be terrible. Nothing has happened so far, and both men are still watching each other. In the middle of the plain, the stage of the recent battle. This ended up making the captain even more furious, realizing that a large part of his forces had been defeated. All this while our protagonist wants to know if they will continue the fight, because it seems the captain has been abandoned by his remaining men. Unable to deny this fact, the captain dropped his spear, acknowledging his defeat. He said he would tell everything he knew, asking only that the priest spare him. While he was telling our protagonist everything, they came to the conclusion that Pelguin is a terrible person. At least he's no longer a threat, which gives the captain a very strange feeling, especially after saying goodbye to all his comrades there. Interested in this mercenary, the priest asked if he hated him. Amused by the question, the captain said that if he answered no, he might have problems. To which the priest replied that it makes no sense to keep someone around who hates him. That made the captain smile as he agrees with that statement. Since he's not a man of many words, this is going to be a little difficult. A mercenary's job is to fight, and defeat is a constant possibility. Sometimes he had to work with people who had defeated his comrades the day before. This doesn't mean they were close friends, but he also didn't seek retaliation against those men. That's why he doesn't hate our priest, but he admits that in the end, he feels a bit lonely. Looking at the banner swaying in the wind, he recognized that the organization had failed once again. Very interested, the priest asked what this man will do now, but he doesn't know either. It's been 15 years since he's been alone, and he's feeling a bit lost. The only thing he knows how to do is fight, believing he'll soon return to his work as a mercenary, as it's all he knows. Our priest seems to be paying attention to these words, because he has a suggestion for this man. He said he could find an employer who would pay well, but this statement left the captain even more confused. Back at the inn where our boy is staying, Dakia is visibly upset, because now she is having a meal in the company of the mercenary captain. Our protagonist wants to know if she has any resentment, and even though she's upset, Dakia said no. But our protagonist can feel a lot of hostility in the girl's voice. He imagines it was because he left without notice, but Dakia said he knows very well what happened. After the last conversation they had, she believed they would have a friendlier relationship with more communication, but now she believes it was just a misunderstanding. The priest had said he needed to talk to her before doing certain things, however. Without telling her anything, he simply left, but our protagonist has a reason for this. He asked if Dakia had ever been in a direct confrontation before. The girl said no. Hearing this answer, the priest said that was the reason he went alone. There was nothing he could do about it, and some confrontations can have serious consequences. Even so, Dakia remains very upset. She wanted to be told everything, and the news nearly ruined her day. But our protagonist did everything by himself precisely so she could rest, stating that he would inform her next time. Finally, the two made up, and now they can focus on their meal. But before that could happen, someone called for the princess. Valtis has just arrived with news that the priest went to negotiate with the mercenaries. They needed to grab their weapons and help immediately. That was the message he had to deliver. Only then did Valtis realize that our protagonist had already returned and was calm and safe. But there was a man at the table that Valtis didn't recognize. He immediately wanted to know who this person was, and the priest replied that he is a mercenary newly hired by the princess. They immediately began to introduce themselves. For Valtis, if that mercenary is there, it's because the priest trusts him. Still, he hopes no harm comes to them. Something the mercenary agrees with as well. Valtis said he's excited to have an experienced companion on this journey. After the introductions, he said he needs to go to the blacksmith to buy some more arrows. Since the sun has already risen, they will leave the next morning, unaware that something very macabre is happening in the forest where someone is awakening the dead. Elsewhere, a girl with purple hair is very upset, asking when this happened. She seems anxious, asking the men in the room with her when the others will arrive. The blonde man isn't so sure, but he hopes it happens soon. He's about to go crazy just listening to this girl's complaints. But the one who seems to be a servant said that everyone will arrive soon, as he is monitoring their location regularly. This put a smile on the girl's face, who asked him if he was really sure. Soon after, she started to be a bit more inquisitive, and the young man assured her. He just wished she would believe his words more and full of enthusiasm. The girl said she does. However, if those people didn't arrive here, she said she would finish this man off. Dakia and the others managed to continue their journey. Now she's a little happier, because they finally reached the city of Aradaiko, the same one where those strange extras were talking. The thing Dakia wants most right now is to take a hot bath. Far away, someone seems to have observed their arrival, and this man immediately called out to our protagonist. He recognized his priest's robes and immediately started to approach quickly. Taking the priest's hands, he said he had something to beg of him. He stated that he needed to go to the Trumpeter of Rest as they don't listen to the Lord's orders. Someone needs to make him stop because he's summoning the dead, and the man said he could pay our priest. Even after hearing this request, our boy said he might not be able to do anything, but the man kept insisting, begging him to at least try to speak with that soul, because he and his companions were already at their limit. The dead walk that place every night, and the townspeople are becoming very frightened. That's why he came to the priest to beg for help. This finally convinced our protagonist, who told the man not to get his hopes up. Speaking to the rest of his group, he said he would meet them soon, asking them to enter the city and go to the inn. Dakia said she would do so with great pleasure. Now, in the middle of the forest, our boy began to remember that there are priests of various gods, and one of the most exotic are the Trumpeters of Rest. For other gods, they choose priests to grant authority, but for the Trumpeters, on a random day, for no reason at all, a random human receives authority. That's how a Trumpeter of Rest is born. From that moment on, they live their lives only to serve the dead. It's hard to even imagine why they live this way. It's a complete mystery. So far, no one has a definitive answer. What is known about them is that to awaken the dead, they must be in a place with many corpses. The trumpeter begins to blow his inaudible instrument, marching through the place like a soldier. Some authorities despise this phenomenon. Even so, no one dares to lay a single finger on these living dead. And this behavior makes perfect sense. Fighting an army of this size is something anyone with common sense would avoid. This type of priest lives a solitary life, traveling only in the company of the dead. They are practically a force of nature, and our boy came to speak with one of them. But this trumpeter didn't answer. Our boy is sure that many have come to him and left, but our protagonist was not in a position to refuse a favor. He went there to deliver the same message. It's time for the trumpeter to leave this place, because he already knows that for normal people, making the dead walk again is a very unpleasant thing to witness, which makes our protagonist ask if there's a reason behind all this, as trumpeters don't stay in one area for long. Even after hearing all this, the trumpeter remained silent, but he told our boy that there are worshippers of evil spirits. Right after that, he pointed in a direction, stating that these people would cause many deaths. Our protagonist decided to look in that direction. It's where the city of Erotico is. Worried by that statement, our boy wants to know if there are worshippers of evil spirits in that place, and slowly, the trumpeter gave his answer. The process is beginning. A great beam of light appeared in the sky. Our protagonist looked back very worried. He won't let things happen like they did in the city of Kelton, so he started running towards the city to prevent a catastrophe. In a building in that place, a fire is spreading. That same purple-haired girl is very upset as the person they are looking for isn't there. The red-haired man is sure that this man's companions entered the city. For God's sake, the man is actually a bald woman. Anyway, she's after our protagonist and believes she'll find him soon. That's when the blonde man with a mustache appeared, thinking he'd finally found what they were looking for, because he is approaching them. Priest Marcos, who walked through the flames to find these people. Our protagonist isn't happy about this at all, and the little girl is very excited by his presence. Our protagonist never imagined he'd find these people in this place. The old man with the mustache started to get suspicious, and our protagonist's bread slicer is ready to make the first cuts. He's anxious to solve this problem and prevent a catastrophe, but he was advised by the mother of corruption to calm down and not act without thinking. However, he isn't very willing to follow that advice, because the mother of corruption knows all too well that man with the mustache is very troublesome. A long time ago, our boy and his savior had their lives ended by the hands of this man with the mustache, who will now satisfy our boy's revenge. We are now taken to the day this happened. It's snowing heavily, and our boy is lying on the ground. Things were a little different in those days. Because our priest carried unnecessary worries, he lived one day at a time, and on the days he hadn't earned enough to survive, his only option was to go hungry. Completely exhausted, he was found in this condition by a traveler. The blizzard was very intense. Even so, he ended up being saved by a complete stranger. This man's name was Shantux. He was an adult man, not too young and not too old. He was also a very easygoing person, but took things seriously when needed. When our protagonist finally woke up, Shantux didn't ask him anything. The only thing he told him was that he could stay there for as long as he needed. This man was also a priest, but he worshipped the goddess of preservation. He also worked as a gravedigger in that town, living a short distance from the walls. One day, our protagonist decided to help him with his work and asked why he had been saved. Shantux answered only with a smile, stating that it was the right thing to do, and he wanted to do it. The sincerity of that smile still holds a special place in our priest's heart, because he was truly a man who helped others. His mission was always to contribute, often saying that you don't need a reason to help others. Our protagonist wished he could be more like him, even if he didn't have as much potential. Time passed quickly, and they had a year of a very peaceful life, until another winter came upon them. The moment came for our priest to save a man who needed help in the middle of the blizzard. In the same way, he himself had been helped one day, but our boy should never have saved that cursed life. Having received help, that mage managed to recover completely. He got out of bed with a pernicious smile, revealing himself to be a worshipper of evil spirits. He immediately used his dark techniques, striking our boy's body. When he finally woke up, everything had changed. The hand of the mother of corruption, which had been stored away, managed to get out of his inventory. It was pressing on his chest, forcing him to wake up. Our protagonist had to go back inside that house, to face the sad truth that awaited him, the consequences of his actions. There was the body of Shantux, one of the best souls he had ever known. That's why our boy's bread slicer is furious. The mage, observing the priest, finally managed to remember him. He's the gravedigger from that small town. What he can't understand is how our protagonist is still alive. But apparently that doesn't matter anymore, as they need to settle this now. The mage also noticed that our boy is wearing the priest's clothes. That made him remember details from that day, because he stole Shantux's arm to repair his own wound and has been using it ever since for the past 3 years. As soon as he heard this, our protagonist was consumed by a great hatred. The girl in that group, completely clueless about what's happening, revealed she's a big fan of Priest Marcos. She claimed she was waiting for him, but the girl was hit as our protagonist was already moving towards the mage. His bread slicer ended up striking something, a magical barrier made by the enemy, which completely blocked his attack. The man with the mustache realized that our protagonist is very different from the rumors. Judging by the tattoos on his skin, our priest is already using a good portion of his power. At that moment, the mother of corruption decided to help as well. The mage's barrier began to break. Our protagonist now has a clear path. However, he chose to strike the mustached man's arm instead. Right after that peculiar girl appeared again, telling our protagonist that she likes him a lot. Without wasting time, our hero neutralized her as the mage was already preparing another attack. This made our priest look carefully at what was happening. The mustached man's foot is glowing intensely, and when it struck the ground, something magnificent happened. A large pillar of light in the shape of a cross appeared in that place. The girl with the shaved head, who looks like a boy, was completely blinded by the light. A lot of dust was kicked up in the town square. That seems to have affected our protagonist in some way. He's on the ground trying to recover. The mustached man can feel a divine power coming from the priest, but it's not from the goddess of preservation. Even so, this blessing seems to be working very well. Now he believes they are both worshippers of evil spirits, but this accusation deeply offended our protagonist. Noticing this, the mage realized he was getting close to the truth. But our protagonist had no patience for this, summoning the great albino giant for a confrontation. The mage became very interested in that authority. Now that he's missing an arm, he decided he would take our protagonists, and that would be perfect. But the great albino giant is about to defeat him decisively. The creature's blow kicked up a huge wave of debris. Our protagonist believes that must have been enough. However, when the dust settled, it was clear the mage had created a protective barrier, strong enough to withstand the creature's attack. Our protagonist decided to get up once more, because he promised himself that something would happen that night. He will defeat that mage no matter what. Meanwhile, the opponent is being hit hard. This was caused by the mercenary's staff, who is also part of our protagonist's team now. He just hopes that poor soul is still conscious. With the others, they are advancing through this destroyed city. Valtis said they need to get to the castle immediately, but Dakia is very worried about our priest as he might have been caught up in this huge mess. But even the mercenary knows that someone like him wouldn't be defeated so easily, so they need to hurry. Among the rubble, there were signs of a great battle. Fire is spreading through the city. Finally, our protagonist's friends managed to reach the city lord's castle. Very worried, Valtis realized the lord has nothing to do with this. The people have simply lost control. Faced with this problem, the mercenary has something to ask of Dakia. They need to stop these people, who seem to have turned into something else. In the next second, he stopped the opponent with his spear. Leaving the girl apprehensive, he showed her what must be done for them to escape safely. Right now, there's no other option. It's time for Dakia to learn how to use a sword. With several enemies approaching, the mercenary said he would go on ahead, hoping his companions wouldn't fall behind. At that very moment, Dakia began to smile. She already had her sword in her hands. In a short time, she was already defeating opponents efficiently. This attitude filled Valtis with pride, because this small group needs to get closer to the castle gates. Along the way, they will face many opponents, and the mercenary noticed something happening elsewhere. A great albino giant seems to be involved in a huge battle. That is our protagonist's summon. The purple-haired girl is still standing, and she can't stop being impressed by our protagonist's skills, because she wants to see just how far he can go. The girl with the shaved head wants to resolve everything through dialogue, as everyone there worships evil spirits. But her colleague disagrees. She has wanted to witness that in person for a long time. Completely furious, our protagonist told the albino giant that the time for confrontation had come. The creature tensed its muscles once more, prepared to stop whatever was in front of it. Its roars of fury are echoing through the air, and the magic barrier was completely destroyed, giving our protagonist the opportunity to get closer once again. In his hands is his weapon, ready for combat. Our hero is definitely waiting for this moment. The mustached mage is also excited about this battle. Blows begin to be exchanged at high speed, like in a great fictional fight. But the mage is no longer surprised by these moves, as everything our protagonist has shown are sword strikes and hand-to-hand attacks. The mother of corruption didn't like that provocation. Sensing that our hero was getting out of control, the mage suggested he calm down a bit. But before he could do anything against our boy, a bolt of lightning struck him dead on, leaving him fallen and defeated. That was so anticlimactic that our protagonist is still trying to understand. He has no idea where that spear could have come from. His enemy had barely hit the ground. Our hero is watching who is approaching. It's the mercenary, who came to help. The priest never imagined Sajida would be responsible for this action. Now that he's unarmed, the poor mercenary began to be surrounded by enemies. All he can do now is keep moving, while all those creatures pursue him. Our protagonist is still trying to figure all this out. He already knew that revenge is a futile feeling. Even so, he wasn't expecting an ending like that. That ended up taking a good opportunity out of his hands. Despite everything, at least the situation was resolved. Our hero can now offer the defeated opponent to the Mother of Corruption. But before he could do anything, a mysterious glow began to appear. Even the Mother of Corruption grew worried as the fallen adversary is overflowing with divine power. He might be trying to recover, so it's time to act again. Our priest approached the fallen adversary, managing to retrieve the item that belonged to his friend. That's when he heard someone's voice say the situation had gotten much worse. It's the short-haired girl, and very worried, she said they should have tried to resolve it by talking. But the other girl completely ignores all these warnings as she still wants to see our priest's potential. While still watching him, she was pulled by her clothes by the short-haired girl, who is now determined to flee this city. When the mustached man gets like that, he can't tell friend from foe. Our protagonist is waiting to see what will happen and asks to be held by the albino giant. The creature immediately held him in one of its hands. Meanwhile, the short-haired girl flees, dragging her ally. She keeps complaining about the other's noise, not noticing that something had just passed by her, completely destroying the path ahead of her. This made the short-haired girl stop immediately. Her eyes didn't like what they saw. She wants to get some details on what the protagonist said about what's going to happen now. Meanwhile, the other girl was happy as she'll get to witness our priest's power once again. She even introduced herself to him, revealing her friend's name as well. She said they both belong to a secret society of worshippers of evil spirits. The name of this peculiar group is Liberatio. The girl is asking if our protagonist remembers the people he met in the city of Kelton. Our hero knows exactly who they are, and he's glad to have finally discovered which society they belong to. Full of enthusiasm, the girl revealed they had been waiting for our protagonist's arrival. Trying to gather information, the priest asked how many people are in this group, but the girl has no idea. She only went there because they allowed her to do whatever she wanted. Pointing to the mustached man, she said he might have more information, since he's the one responsible for completing the mission in that place. The only problem is the state he's in right now. Our protagonist asked what the objective of this secret society is. The short-haired girl said she will give that answer, because their goal is very simple. No matter which god is worshipped in this world, they will ensure that these people are not persecuted. Reflecting on this, our protagonist realized that these people are being deceived. Pointing to the city, he asked if this was what the girl wanted to do to those people. She said that wasn't in her plans, but unfortunately, the mustached man started causing trouble. There are some things they need to collect, and right now, our protagonist has one of them. But our hero has no idea what she's talking about. That's when this citizen said they need this sacred relic. That sphere he managed to collect from the defeated monstrosity. This made our protagonist realize his assumptions are correct. By using the relic with the power of the Mother of Corruption, this group of individuals wants to do something. He told them that the sphere he had collected shattered, which left the short-haired girl very surprised. But he claims that's exactly what happened, and he discarded the fragments in the city of Kelton. Our protagonist wants to know if there are more of these artifacts scattered around the world. The purple-haired girl replied that there are 4. These words seem to have caused a reaction in the Mother of Corruption, because this sealed power belongs to her, and finding out what happened to it made her furious. The short-haired girl wasn't happy that her colleague shared that information, and our protagonist is already fired up. He even has something to ask now. He wants to meet the one responsible for causing all the trouble in the city. The purple-haired girl said she wasn't responsible, and the other girl is already a little scared. Our protagonist defeated her with a single blow, watching as his opponent slowly fell to the ground. Now, only the purple-haired girl remained. Our protagonist tried to attack her once more, but it wasn't enough to defeat this adversary. Completely determined, the priest Marco said he would do this for the Mother of Corruption. He finally managed to collect the divinity points from the defeated opponent. But there was something different about the other girl. Even after being hit, she remained standing, which was truly intriguing. The one responsible for the events in the city was finally apprehended. Now everything seems much quieter. That's when our protagonist heard someone call his name. His companions had just arrived. All the reanimated beings finally fell to the ground, and they wanted to know what the priest had been up to. But our protagonist simply answered with a smile. Sajida wanted to know if his spear had been helpful, and the priest thanked him for his contribution. He was impressed by that incredible strength. But what our protagonist really hopes is that the mercenary didn't see the albino giant in the middle of the battle. Since things seem to be resolved, it's time for them to leave because something big is about to happen. Valtis immediately grew curious and asked what it could be. Within seconds, the answer came to them in the form of a terrifying sound. A massive hostile creature had formed in the city, created from the energy of those who had fallen. Its very form revealed the origin of its creation. Watching it, Baltus was seized by a great dread. They were truly facing a creature formed from multiple beings. This was exactly what our protagonist had been talking about. And this part of his life is truly very complicated. Even after being defeated, the mage had managed to unite all those energies, taking on this completely intimidating form, an authority that serves such a despicable person well. Facing this situation, our boy spoke to Dakia. He knows she's upset about the conflict, but he would comfort her soon. Right now, he needs to stay focused. The princess seemed to appreciate his words. She wants to know how the priest will support her, but they need to save those who are still alive. And the first task is to buy some time. Valtis is very worried and wants to know if help is on the way. Our boy is sure of it. Outside the city, the trumpeter is approaching. Sajida watches everything with great attention until he decides to call out to our priest. It seems their help has just arrived. A large army of the undead is entering the city, all of them led by the trumpeter. The great hideous creature now has many enemies to face, a battle between reanimated forces. The grotesque creature's form began to weaken, as if being undone by countless attackers. Dakia decided to say something to our priest, pointing directly at the trumpeter, who continued to approach them. But our protagonist was already expecting something like this. With his face hidden by a mask, the trumpeter said that among the 4 of them, he wanted to choose someone agile, someone who could also carry that spear to strike the creature's heart. For a brief moment, they all became very thoughtful. Our protagonist wanted to know if the trumpeter had a different weapon, like a sword. That question left him in silence. Even so, he began to alter the shape of his instrument. This gesture greatly surprised our protagonist, who never imagined it was possible. Now very enthusiastic, he asked for another sword to be made, and some arrows too. Once again, the trumpeter remained silent. All this while the creature continued to wreak havoc in the city, fighting against the undead. The trumpeter is now using his power, summoning the weapons our protagonist requested, making it clear that he should have asked for everything at once. Now they are all properly armed for battle. Dakia really liked the sword she received. Our protagonist agrees with her. The equipment is truly incredible. They are all extremely sharp and made of bone, coated with the trumpeter's power. To fight the undead, this choice of weapons is highly effective. The trumpeter said he will stop the giant's movements for a brief moment. At that time, they must seize the opportunity to pierce the creature's heart. No matter what, if they help him with this task, they can keep the weapons. Once more, the silent trumpet is played. Our boy and his team are ready for the next stage of the confrontation. That inaudible sound seems to have reached the malevolent creature. All the undead are being affected by this technique. The body of one of them dissolved, turning into water. A chain reaction is spreading across the battlefield. Dakia is increasingly surprised by what is happening. She has never seen the undead dissolve before, and now it's happening to the creature. The priest observes with great attention. Thanks to this, the enemy seems to be weakening. Its strength is literally dissolving away. This is all the work of the trumpeter's power, who will surely solidify these beings again. To our boy, this mysterious helper might be worse than the worshippers of evil spirits. The trumpeter took the opportunity to say that the weapons will guide them in battle, straight to the enemy's heart. Now they must run immediately. Although our protagonist has many questions to ask, he knows there's something more pressing and launches into the attack. If they continue to postpone resolving this conflict, things will get much worse. The creature is about to strike them, but its movements aren't very fast. Dodging them is easy for now. One of the creature's appendages is trying to move as it saw an opportunity to grab Dakia. When she looked back, the princess realized the danger, but nothing happened to her as powerful arrows neutralized the threat. Valtis had fallen a bit behind, but that doesn't mean he isn't paying attention to everything. Our protagonist can now advance with confidence. Dakia is resolute. She will contribute to this fight with everything she has, giving our protagonist the chance to advance even further. But now he needs the mercenary's help. He wants to know if he has the strength to hit the monster's heart. Our protagonist has decided he will distract the upper part so his companion can complete the mission. After sharing the strategy, he had to move away. The undead are advancing, but they can't stop our boy's weapon. There's a reason he's heading straight for the creature's head. According to the voice of the mother of corruption, there is a piece of divinity in that place, trapped in the middle of the creature's head. And that's not all. There, too, is the face of the mage, the person our protagonist despises. He would never forget those eyes. The mage, Rivercall. The battle rages on where the mercenary is, and our protagonist has finally gotten close to the head. It's time to act. And this time, he will make sure of one thing: to completely defeat his enemy. The mage's face was destroyed. Our protagonist is determined to stop him no matter what. No part of that form will be spared. They all deserve to know the priest's determination. He used the bone sword to achieve his goal, finally neutralizing that head. Sajida, who had stayed behind, finally gained access to the heart. He immediately plunged his spear into the creature's core. A wave of energy shot through the monstrosity's entire body. The beings that made up its structure began to fall apart. Dakia noticed this immediately and looked toward her companions, watching the creature's form rapidly degrade, turning into a large pool of dark matter. What remained on that battlefield is completely different, but our protagonist achieved what he desired. He managed to recover another divine artifact while also honoring the memory of his dear friend, who was a good person. Shantux can now rest in peace. After that fierce battle, Dakia approached our priest. She was worried about his physical well-being, hoping he hadn't been injured, but our protagonist is perfectly fine. He wanted to know where Sajida was, who quickly made himself known. He is still amazed by the potential of the spear he had received. With everyone gathered, they are now looking toward the trumpeter. Still shrouded in an air of mystery, he asked them to follow him. But this request was only for our priest. Obeying his words, our boy began to approach him calmly. He still doesn't know what this mysterious trumpeter wants to talk to him about in private. Maybe he realized it during the battle, that our priest had taken the sacred relic. Or worse, that he realized he's a follower of the shadows. The trumpeter starts to move. This caused a reaction from the shadow guide, and our protagonist felt it too. In front of him, the trumpeter said that it was finally coming. But our boy can feel a mysterious presence. He even closed his eyes to sharpen his senses, because he knows exactly what has just appeared. It's a very powerful presence from a higher being, one that is above humanity. A part of this entity itself is standing before them, the one the trumpeter and the others worship. Even in the face of this presence, the trumpeter remains silent. Then he pointed a finger at our boy, who was very confused. The mysterious man told him he should go to the capital. Right after that, he seemed to lose his strength. The trumpeter fell to his knees on the ground. Our protagonist was a little worried, but he noticed the trumpeter was disappearing right after delivering that message. Still very curious, our priest wants to know if this person has anything else to say to him. At first, he was silent, but as his mask continued to fade, the trumpeter said he didn't know, nor did he wish to know. Our protagonist realized he wouldn't get any more answers, so he offered his hand to help the trumpeter stand up once more. Returning to his friends, he asked if the trumpeter could help with the cleanup, as the army of the undead could be very useful. But the mysterious figure replied that helping the living is not his obligation. However, as he finished saying these words, he felt he had received a divine message. Something had appeared in the air above his head, and that was enough to make him change his mind, immediately asking how he could help. Our boy told him to look for survivors. The trumpeter wants to know if that's all, but our priest asked for something more. For those people to be taken to safe places. After playing his inaudible instrument, the dead rose once more. Dakia and the others watched, a little frightened. Only our protagonist seemed enthusiastic about this idea. He added that it would also be very helpful if any supplies found were moved to undamaged buildings, because anything left behind would spoil. Annoyed, the trumpeter gave another order to the dead. After that, he was interrupted again, but before our boy could finish his request, the trumpeter irritably told him to ask for everything at once. At the end of the day, our priest is holding the amulet that belonged to his friend. He's going to leave it in the trumpeter's possession, who took it without a word. After helping, he moved away from the company of the undead. Dakia found the situation quite unusual. She never thought the trumpeter would one day help them, and our boy said that he's a very kind man. But Dakia is sure our boy went to him for help, and indeed he did, but our priest didn't think he would succeed. And for accomplishing such a thing, the princess thanked our boy, because it was really very helpful. Faced with all this friendliness, the shadow guide became filled with jealousy. At night, in his room, our boy watches as the shadow guide tries to absorb the relic, but he's still thinking about the trumpeter's message. It's as if there's a sacred relic in the capital. If that's true, then he knows our priest's true nature. With this in mind, he decided to ask the shadow guide about the entity they had encountered, but to his surprise, she had never heard of it. This reminded him of the trumpeter's own words, that he had nothing more to say to our boy. This is a sign that its identity won't be revealed to everyone. Even so, he doesn't know what's happening. Soon, his thoughts were interrupted as the shadow guide got upset trying to absorb the relic. She's having trouble breaking the bond between the artifact and the divinity within it, but our boy encouraged her to keep trying, telling her she would succeed soon. However, even though she was very upset about it, he told her she couldn't keep throwing things like that. Even if she was frustrated, she should control her impulse to do such things, saying she could become 3 times more captivating than she already is. The shadow guide asked if she would be more charming to him. Our boy said no, shattering all her expectations, and asked her to listen carefully, because she's already very captivating to him. So it ends up being the same for him. It doesn't matter if she becomes 3 times more, or even hundreds of times more. After that short speech, our priest asked her to promise not to break things when she's angry. Inside another inn, 2 men are having dinner. One of them is saying that the followers of the shadows are spreading everywhere, and not just in that kingdom. Curiously, a blue-haired woman is paying attention to their conversation. She heard that Eradicate had also faced big problems. Their city might be next. But the man told them not to worry because one person stopped the followers of the shadows in both cities. That is the great savior, Marcos, and it's thanks to him that these men can sit here, drinking without a care. Because of this, they make a toast to our protagonist, repeating his name while the blue-haired girl listens intently. She doesn't seem to like the title our priest received, Savior. A man is furious about this whole situation with the followers of the shadows. He even managed to convince the Lord of Eradico to capture the princess. But thanks to everything that happened, nothing went according to plan. This makes him more and more enraged, because he's sure of one thing. The Prince of the Dragon Empire will be very upset when he hears the news, and he will certainly be even more furious if this man does nothing about it. He knocked on the door a few times after thinking about the situation. He announced himself, saying that Hilden wished to see His Highness. His entry was finally authorized. The prince inside doesn't seem happy with this visit. Now, in the middle of the snow, stands our priest. He seems to have stopped some bandits and asked the last one to repeat the threats he had made. Even so, that man was also neutralized. Dakia still watches it all with a certain heaviness in her heart, but our boy assured her he would bury them all. He did so in a mass grave marked with a large cross. When finished, he said a prayer to the shadow guide, because in this process, he will conduct a ritual for the fallen. Thanks to this, he managed to absorb a few more divinity points. Due to the frequency of bandit attacks, our protagonist is managing to gather many points. And now, it's time for him to resume his journey. Together with his companions, they continue walking, until Dakia decided to ask another question. After turning his attention to her, he heard that the princess doesn't intend to criticize him, and she would very much like not to be misunderstood in this situation. But he has never shown any compassion for the bandits, and she would like to know why he behaves this way. However, if he doesn't want to tell the truth, he doesn't have to. Our priest ended up sighing deeply. First, he asked the princess if she had also asked Valtis and Sagita this question. She said yes. Valtis said they have to do it because armed bandits could attack other innocents. Meanwhile, Sagita is just doing his job since he's a hired mercenary on this trip, but he could spare the bandits if the princess wished. In response, our protagonist gave his answer. He believes that people have great potential. These words confuse the princess, as she imagines he must believe in the rebirth of souls. But for our boy, he believes in the potential for repentance, that they can live a better life. This only confused the princess more, because if he believes that, he should let the bandits live. Our priest simply replied that making the right decision isn't always easy. Although he believes in the potential for repentance, he also thinks there's a very high chance these people will return to doing evil. And that is why he doesn't spare any of these souls. All of this information ended up sounding very confusing to the princess, and she wants to know if they truly have the authority to make such a judgment about other people, because they've never received such a thing from a divine authority. The one who didn't like these words was the mother of corruption, because she had given our protagonist the authority to do whatever he wants. So he told the princess he doesn't act based on that judgment. He is simply taking responsibility for his decision. Letting the bandits go free could mean other victims would be hurt. It can also remove their potential for regret, which is the decision he has been making. The princess finally realized that this is a personal choice. Our protagonist recognizes that the day may come when he will have to pay for everything he's done. But no matter the cost, this is a path he is choosing to walk. Because he wouldn't want to save a wicked person just to see them harm an innocent, something he never wants to repeat in his life again. If he's not capable of bearing the consequences, he swore to himself that he would not allow an evil person to continue their ways, no matter how much potential they possess. The princess seems to be reflecting on his words. She grew curious and wanted to know more about our protagonist's past, but the question made her uncomfortable, so she said our protagonist could remain silent if he wished. Our boy said he could share everything, but he would have to save it for another time. Surprising the princess, he pointed in the direction they were walking. In their path was a merchant caravan. Sajida suggested they go talk to them. A caravan of that size should have supplies, and they could also sell the equipment they took from the bandits. This opportunity gets them all excited. In the caravan is a man with what looks like a robotic mask, and he is carefully examining our protagonist's equipment. What he's holding now is the bread slicer. The merchant admits he got distracted. He's never seen so much high-quality ore in a single sword. That's immortalium, a famous metal alloy, which surprised Valtis. But the merchant made it clear that not only is it in its solid form, but the amount is more than he's managed to collect in the last 120 years. It's definitely a priceless treasure, and he's willing to pay an exorbitant sum for it. But our protagonist isn't interested in selling the bread slicer, and the merchant would do the same in his position. Valtis now wants to know what this man wants to discuss with them. The merchant wants to hire them as an escort for a trip to the kingdom's capital, having heard they passed through the city of Eradiko. That can only mean one thing. The demon hunter is among them. The one who saved the city of Kelton, the great savior of the people. Surely, this must be the priest Marcos, whose skills speak for themselves. The merchant promised to reward them handsomely for this service. They would be treated very well, better than common mercenaries. Faced with the proposal, Valtis said he needed to discuss it with his companions in private. The merchant immediately agreed, revealing that he was anxious to hear good news. Night has fallen, and they are at the camp. In our protagonist's quarters, the mother of corruption has returned to her physical form. She's getting a shoulder massage. Our boy ended up agreeing to the job offer. He promised they would look for a good inn once they reached the capital. While they were inside, our guy heard a scream from outside. Some of the mercenaries are having trouble with a large creature. An old man among them understood what was happening. They are all being attacked by giant bats. This news immediately worried our protagonist. The creatures are ready to continue their attack, but our protagonist is already outside. It's time to put the bread slicer to work. His strikes are effective, taking down the creatures one by one. Valtis is also in the battle, firing her arrows. The force of her shots was impressive, capable of downing targets in a single hit. The two of them fighting as a duo are truly powerful. Our protagonist remains firm in his purpose. He quickly neutralizes the creatures that still pose a threat. Dakia is now preparing a great fire spell, and she needs to use all her concentration to do so. One of the bats is about to attack one of the men, but it was stopped by the mercenary's spear, who was also contributing to the battle. His agility saved the man's life and was faster than the princess's move. As our protagonist approached, he said she should hold back a bit, as magic is more dangerous than a spear. Dakia was a little offended by this comment, saying her aim wasn't that bad. She can't believe she would miss such a large target, but our protagonist said they are bats, and their movement pattern is unpredictable. A fire blast like that could hit an ally, which is why she should be more cautious. Despite being annoyed, she accepted the correction. After the fight, our protagonist managed to return to his tent. The bread slicer is also completely filthy, but our boy didn't go to rest just yet. In fact, he went to speak with the merchant. Although he was very impressed with the sword he wanted to buy, he became intimidated by it and asked our protagonist to wait. But our priest isn't feeling very patient, saying that everything will depend on how the merchant answers him. The man realized he needs to be careful now, and our protagonist reinforced the idea, telling him he must pay close attention to what he says next. The first question is about the caravan. Why is it being attacked by worshippers of evil spirits? Although intimidated, the merchant has no idea why this is happening. This answer didn't please our protagonist, who started to activate the bread slicer's mechanism. The merchant obviously was terrified by this and said he would tell the truth solely because of our boy's reputation. This made our protagonist put the sword away, but he hopes not to be deceived again. Before telling the truth, however, the merchant asked for secrecy. Our protagonist agreed, since he is working as a mercenary here. Only then did the merchant ask one of his men to bring the object. A small box was brought to them. The attacks began after this merchant took possession of a particular item. He was asked to take it to the capital. Our protagonist realized he must have suffered great losses from the repeated attacks and wanted to know why he didn't give up on the job. The merchant explained he received immortalium as an advance payment and would get the same amount upon delivering the item in the capital. The truth is, he has no idea why they want that item, and when he asked other priests for information, he got no answers. Finally, he revealed what was inside the box. Seeing it, our protagonist was very surprised. because that is a holy relic which possesses the power of the Mother of Corruption. Now he knows what the worshippers of evil spirits are looking for. Our boy has the hand, which works as an artifact to find these objects, but he doesn't know how the worshippers of evil spirits can also search for them. Showing his curiosity, the merchant asked our protagonist why they want that object so badly. The priest said he doesn't have an answer for that. He understands the gravity of the situation, but he has something else to ask now. The working conditions. That man hid something from them, and that should be reflected in the payment for this service. Our protagonist suggested doubling the payment, a proposal that quite startled the merchant. But lost in thought, he was forced to agree. Faced with such negotiation skills, he even suggested our protagonist should become a merchant too. Reunited with his companions, they praised what he had achieved. One of them noticed the signs of battle on the caravan. Sajida realized from these marks that things were complicated. Dakia said they should have been informed sooner, but the mercenary understood that they would have encountered the same enemies anyway, since they were heading in the same direction. Valtis agreed. At least our protagonist managed to double everyone's payment. The priest said it was nothing, while the princess is just happy that none of them got hurt. Ending the meeting, Valtis said they should all get some rest, because the next day would be very long and tiring. Returning to his cabin, our protagonist heard something from the Mother of Corruption. She suggested they take the holy relic, but our protagonist knows the repercussions could be very bad if they were discovered. But she encourages the priest to be discreet, believing no one will find out. But he wants to remain cautious until he finds out what that machine man is capable of, assuring the Mother of Corruption that caution is the best option. The best choice would be to let it get taken, only to recover it later and absorb its divinity. This idea filled the Mother of Corruption with enthusiasm. Because of this, she showered our priest with praise. Their conversation was soon interrupted as another attack was happening. This annoyed our protagonist, as he had just cleaned up. Even so, it's time for his weapon to see some action. One of those mercenaries is warning of the monster's arrival. He and his companions were hit by the creature, which seems as strong as a locomotive. Our protagonist is paying close attention, because he will be this enemy's next target. However, our boy is in possession of a powerful sword. He's just waiting for the creature to get close enough. But upon striking the monster's body, he was very surprised. Its hide is tougher than he expected. Since the creature is so strong, it easily repelled him. Our protagonist is trying to at least remove one of its horns, something he finally managed to do after great effort. This damage seems to have completely weakened the creature. Our boy managed to get up from the ground, looking tired, but something in that place caught his attention. Behind the bushes, there's a suspicious light. Something just came out of that place. Some kind of entity is heading towards him. But our protagonist reacted quickly, stopping the woman. It didn't take long for him to recognize her. After all, only one character has appeared in the story with that hair color. It's the girl with purple hair who said she missed our protagonist. This girl is really annoying. She's asking if our protagonist missed her. Faced with his refusal, she said it was fine as she had thought about them enough for the both of them. Ignoring the subject, our girl said she has questions to ask. She wants to know what she'll get in return if she shares everything she knows. After that, our boy had to go back to fighting the creatures, leaving the defeated adversaries behind. He continues to be targeted, but his companions aren't useless. Sagitta's spear is also ready for combat. Valtis, who was nearby, noticed something happening. The creature that was hit is running away, and it would be wise to stop it from taking the spear stuck in it. Starting the chase, our protagonist said he would handle it, showing he can be just as fast as that monster. Slowly, the distance between them is closing, and our protagonist is ready to throw the bone sword, hitting the creature right in the middle of its back. This blow proved to be decisive. Now our boy can retrieve his weapons, leaving the defeated creature behind. Thanks to this, our boy can be alone for a bit. He apologized for making the citizen wait, and she grew anxious because of it. As soon as she came down from the tree, she asked if our protagonist would do everything she had asked of him. But our protagonist refused all her terms, because he needs answers first, and the girl said she would help him. The first is to know how many spirit worshippers are there to attack them, but the girl seems to have trouble with numbers, taking some time to say there are only 3, not including herself. What upsets her is that her companions keep ignoring her presence. But judging by the girl's collaboration, it makes perfect sense that she's being left out. Even so, our boy is playing along, saying her companions are very cruel. This leads him to the next question. He wants to know why the caravan is being attacked. The girl said it's because of the necklace. Their mission is to steal this item. Our protagonist wants to know how they found out about the necklace's presence in the caravan. The girl said she has no idea. However, the person who hired the merchant is also part of Liberatio. This information surprised our protagonist, as those attacking the caravan belong to the same secret society. This is a sign of conflict among them, but the girl made it clear it's not that important. This situation is more of a mind game. Our priest already expected them to be internally divided. He wants to know if the girl belongs to any faction. She said she's neutral and does anything for money and materials. This made our priest ask what kind of materials she's looking for. The girl needs those used for her puppets, and she's going to explain to him how it works. She is a priestess who serves the trembling thread. Finally, our priest realized that the girl he saw before and the one before him now are both marionettes. He was soon interrupted. The girl told our protagonist to be cautious, as her companions are preparing something big. After receiving all this information, our protagonist wants to know why she is helping him so much, which surprised the girl, because this question is very different from the others he had asked so far. A deep silence filled the air. Our protagonist said he's no longer curious about it, which left the girl deeply disappointed. She really wished he would keep asking about that topic. Even so, he still needs information, and wants to know what the girl wants from him. She said she'll tell him the next time they meet. This made our boy smile. Using his sword, he bid her farewell. The marionette was deactivated, and the girl also said goodbye. Finally, things are quiet at the camp. Upon returning, someone called out to our protagonist. It's the princess who was waiting for him. Our protagonist asked if the matter was urgent, because the princess should be resting now since they could be attacked at any moment. She would like to rest, but she noticed the priest was gone for a while and wanted to know where he had been. Our boy was chasing a monster and sensing a nearby energy, decided to investigate. This only made the princess even more worried, imagining he had found an adversary, but our protagonist said he didn't find anyone. She is genuinely worried and brought her handkerchief to the priest's face. But the closeness made him uncomfortable. He didn't want the princess ruin her handkerchief like that. But the princess said she brought the handkerchief especially for this occasion, to clean our protagonist's face. While holding one of his hands, she asked him not to run away. The princess is now cleaning his face, while the mother of corruption gets very upset. Finally, she managed to do everything she wanted, leaving the rest of the cleaning to our priest. She also left the used handkerchief with him. Moving away, the princess wished the priest a good night's rest. Finally, our young man can enter his cabin, thinking that the day had been very long. Immediately, the mother of corruption materialized there. She didn't like that gift at all and is now holding the handkerchief in her hands. Our protagonist said his face has already been cleaned. Even so, the mother of corruption insists on cleaning it one more time. The next day, everyone resumed their journey through the snow. Our priest heard something. Looking towards the horizon, he was confused about the sound. He immediately remembered the purple-haired girl's advice to be cautious. This could be worse than an ambush. A large explosion occurred at the top of the mountain, and our protagonist knows exactly what that means. An avalanche is happening. He told everyone to abandon their items and start running immediately. The great mass of snow is coming down on all of them, and this could be very dangerous. The avalanche is approaching fast, and our boy wished he had a little time to act. Trying to think of a solution, he spotted the princess. Approaching her, he said he urgently needed her help. There's no time to run. The avalanche is approaching too quickly. No one will get out unscathed, but with her help, they might be able to save these people. Dakia, looking quite insecure, has no idea how that's possible. Our boy told her she must hit the avalanche with her magic. She had been waiting for an opportunity to use her techniques, and our priest said the time has finally come. But the princess is very insecure. She doesn't believe she has a technique capable of stopping something this large. Our boy said she doesn't have to stop the avalanche, just delay it long enough for people to escape. Dakia said that while she channels her power, she won't be able to move and will be too exhausted afterward. Hearing these words, our protagonist assured her he would protect her, no matter what happens. Apparently, the girl became extremely motivated by this. She's willing to do her part, but she demanded that our boy keep his word, because now she is trusting him completely. Using all her concentration, Dakia's magic is slowly manifesting. An enormous power is gathering around her body, and she finally managed to unleash her attack. A large beam of energy shot towards the avalanche, striking the mass of snow that was heading towards them all. A huge explosion occurred, and the shockwave nearly uprooted the trees. Dakia is using all her power for this, hoping to stop the avalanche completely. In that instant, our protagonist saw her potential grow a little more. The girl had been rated with 4 fingers.